go. Greetings, imagination connoisseurs. Once again, it is I, your Duke of Dope Discourse, Robert Meyer Burnett. I invite you to watch and listen to the Designing Hollywood podcast, brought to you by Martika Ibarra and the great, legendary Hollywood costume designer, Marilyn Vance. I am afforded the wonderful opportunity of co-hosting the show. If you are interested in the magic of Hollywood, the design of Hollywood, the clothes of Hollywood, watch the Designing Hollywood podcast, available wherever you get your podcasts from, or find the video version on the John Campea YouTube channel. That's right, the Designing Hollywood podcast. Why would you ever want to miss it? Especially if you love the movies.
There's a company called Hot Toys, and they make these insanely realistic, renderings of characters. They do them for all the Marvel characters or whatever, and they look so much like you. It's disturbing, actually. Like, scary. They look so much like you, but they're tiny. They're like 18 inches or something like that. They actually that's what's crazy about that company is they hand make they carve the mold of
That's crazy.
It's wild.
Robservations with Robert Meyer Burnett.
Well, greetings, imagination connoisseurs. Once again, it is I, your Duke of Dope Discourse, your master of fun and wonder, your viceroy of verisimilitude, your pharaoh of physical media, and whatever other names you want to hang on me, I'll take them. Robert Meyer Burnett. And once again, it's Midnight Musings. We skipped a week, but we are back. It's Midnight Musings, episode number 73. But you know, you don't care about me. What you want is billowing. What you want is beauty. And I give to you RM. You know her. You love her. Look at her. She looks effervescent tonight. How are you?
Thank you, Robert. I am well. It's so great to be here on Musings. There's so much to talk about. So good to see you, Robert. How are you?
I'm good. You know, they're doing a lot of stuff. it's doing. I feel like I'm treading water between doing some creative work, doing YouTube stuff with John on our channel, following the industry, watching the world fall apart. It's crazy. Lots going on. May you live in interesting times, and boy, do we.
We certainly do. There is a lot going on. And Robert, I have to say, I've been waiting and waiting for this series on Apple TV, which seems to never, ever put out a bad show. And of course, the show I am talking about, Robert, is Masters of the Air, the show I've been waiting for. It feels like forever. It's got to be one of the most beautifully shot shows I've ever seen in my life, Robert. It's gorgeous, and it looks so expensive. Robert, I have no idea how they were able to put this together. It's almost like you're flying in the heavens. It feels that way. And it is remarkable. Even the actors' performances are so enhanced by the cinematography. It's out of this world, Robert.
Well, we should say it's the third part of a trilogy that began with Band of Brothers and then was continued with the Pacific. And now we're talking about it's the air war in Europe, right?
Yes. Yes.
So we're dealing with of course, the RAF and the Americans, I would imagine. I don't know where it starts, but when I was a kid, I built all the planes from World War II. I had many of them. It's terrible because one of my favorite planes was a German plane. I feel bad about that, the Stuka, because it was pretty cool. But of course, P-51 Mustang, Cadillac of the Sky, and of course the British Spitfire was a hell of a plane. So I can't wait to watch this. And of course, we have our Liberators, the B-25s. We have the B-17s. Then we later had the B-29 Stratofortress that the Enola Gay dropped Fat Man and Little Boy on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. I can't wait to watch the show. I'm very
Robert,
excited.
you are going to love it because they have spared nothing. There's so much attention to detail. They are even letting us see the behind the scenes of when these planes are coming back after all the flack that they are exposed to, and damage that they get. It may not be the overnight, but they give you the impression of how fast the turnaround is from the crews that go ahead and fix the planes so that everybody is ready to go on that next mission. It's at nighttime, they show this dedication, this incredible commitment of people during World War II who are making the sacrifice of doing everything they can to repair these planes and make them fit again for people to fly up in the air. It is such a remarkable endeavor, Robert, and just the colors that I'm seeing, and the definition and the depth in this production, Robert, I have no idea. It must have taken them years to get this level of perfection. I'm seeing, layers upon layers of texture and weight in these pictures that I haven't really ever seen except in maybe gallery paintings where a master might spend several years, perfecting a particular type of technique. It's so beautiful. It's so uplifting. It's terrifying.
Right.
And I think that the performances we're seeing are remarkable. Butler just shines in this after his award-winning performance in Elvis. He is just on fire, Robert. It's just so beautiful. Maybe the most beautiful series I've ever seen. I can't get over the imagery and the passion of what, the production. Of course, we know who's involved in it, but certainly I have to commend the production design team who worked on this. They have such an incredible ethic and pride in their work. It shows. It looks so authentic, Robert. It looks so much like the pictures we've seen from that era. And I'm just
I can't wait. The thing is, it's funny, but airplanes were the last frontier of visual effects. Because we live in the world and we know what it looks like when you're in a plane. Like if you go back and you watch Air Force One, some of the visual effects of just Air Force One in the air, it's always been rough. The visual effects have always been rough because they could never make it look totally realistic. And from what I've seen of this show, the scenes in the air look amazing. And I kind of thought that when I saw Roland Emmerich's Midway, you could see that the technology was getting better, but it's like they can't, I don't know how many real planes they use, probably not many, but to see B-17s in the air. I don't know if we've gotten that far yet in the war, but I can't wait. Because it's how many is it 10 episodes?
I believe it's 10. And sadly, I personally and they premiered 3. I didn't know they premiered 3. I thought they only premiered 2. We did a watch party, of course, on the channel of the show. And Robert, I could not tell you one plane to another. And I apologize to you.
No, it's okay.
I can't tell you which plane is which, with any real accuracy. But what I can say is that it looks incredibly expensive. And I'm always talking about how important the lighting is. I know there's a lot of important aspects in video and film and television, but the lighting, Robert, for this one had to be right. You needed to get impact and feeling as if you were flying it, in some cases 20,000, maybe even 25,000 feet. I don't know how high these planes go, but it looks like it's above the cloud cover. But I think that these effects, and certainly the amount of space that they have to cover in these effects. So you go from, maybe perhaps, you're looking, it's a mile away from you, or maybe even half a mile, but it has to look like it's right there, like there.
Yeah, no, I mean, otherwise it wouldn't work. They
Yes.
would, if it did not look convincing, it wouldn't work. And now effects technology has come to the point where you can actually make it work. I mean, that's another thing about, even like I saw a video on YouTube of someone made a Superman drone, like a drone that was like a human-sized Superman, and they were flying it. And I'm like, if you painted that Superman green, you could finally do practical. You could literally, because even when I was working on Superman Returns, they shot a lot of stuff with Brandon Routh practically against a green screen on a stage. It was him flying. There was green screen guys. And they're making the problem is like the cape. You know, it's really difficult because when you're dealing with gravity, you had to have guys with strings holding the cape up. And they ended up replacing most of that with a digital double, which you can kind of tell. And even in Zack Snyder's Superman, it's gotten better, like if you Superman and Lois. But I was thinking about with now, you could take like that Superman drone, paint it green, and just comp in, you know, the real actor and make it would look absolutely real. And just the clips I've seen on this, they finally nailed it. Because we know what the thing that makes things the hardest is if we know what something looks like, because we know what it's like to look out the window of a plane. So if that doesn't look real, if it's in the uncanny valley, we know. And that was one of the last frontiers visual effects could conquer, was especially prop planes, because if there's too many planes in the sky, which a lot of the time they've put too many planes. I mean, there were a lot of planes, but they just put them too close together because, you know, you can do anything you can do anything you want with a computer, but it's all about the design of the shot. And does the design make you believe? So from what I'm hearing from you, I'm really excited because, you know, I do love those planes. And when I was a kid, I probably had 150 between my flying model rockets. When I was done flying them, I would put them on my ceiling. I'd hang them on my ceiling. And I had most of the planes that were flown between the Japanese, the British, and even some Soviet planes and the Nazis. I had almost every plane that was flown in World War II hanging on my ceiling. So I built them all. So I can't wait to watch this show.
Well, you're going to love it. And as I said, they premiered, I think, 3 episodes from what Darth Plato was telling me about. And we watched the first 2 right here on the channel. I felt like it was important for us to see something like this. I've never seen anything like this before. And it does feel, one other element that I do like about it is that it does feel very adventurous. And it is true that it's incredibly dangerous what we're watching, the conditions that these men are flying under. They're constantly in danger, but it feels very adventurous. It feels, you know, kind of exciting and uplifting. And I wasn't expecting to feel that. I knew I would be watching, you know, the show that would be about World War II, but I wasn't expecting it to be so cool, Robert. It's cool. And the pilots come across as being very cool, and they are cool, but I wasn't expecting to kind of like, yeah, these pilots are awesome. You know, I do have that feeling about them. It's fascinating. It's intriguing. You know, it's so wonderful that they're able to convey those feelings, and certainly the fascination of a pilot and, you know, what they do and the risk that they're taking. It's just so incredible, Robert. Yeah. And, you know, you're going to be blown away by so much about it. The costuming is spectacular. I hope you get to interview the person who did the costumes on this one, Robert.
Well, I listen, I can't wait. I'm very excited to watch. I mean, obviously it's right up my alley, so I cannot wait.
Now, before I watched Masters of the Air tonight with Darth Plato, I did watch the entire series of The Pacific with him on the channel. And I felt like we had to, because I hardly ever hear anybody talk about the Pacific. And so we watch it. And of course, it focuses on the Marines campaign in the Pacific. And Robert, that also was a spectacular series for those of you who haven't seen it. I know everybody on Earth seems to have seen Band of Brothers, but I don't hear very much said about the Pacific. So I felt like we needed to kind of talk about it, and I did. And Robert, that was equally amazing, even though it was made, I guess, 10, 12 years ago.
Yeah.
An absolutely beautiful depiction of just a glimpse of what it must have been like to deal with being a Marine under these conditions.
Oh,
and
yeah, no.
It's indescribable. And I'm sorry.
It wasn't, I didn't like the Pacific, though, as much as I like Band of Brothers.
Okay, a lot of people have said, I've heard a lot of people say that, and certainly that, that is, fine. What I did want to say though was that I to be honest with you, I've read a lot about the Pacific, let's say in books and newspapers and things of that nature, and the idea of trying to bring it to life was very challenging, I believe. And what they were able to accomplish in that series also was such an
Oh
accomplishment.
yeah, no.
There's no book that's going to describe to you what happened and what they were able to show in it. It was just incredible. What a great series they're making, continuing on with Masters of the Air.
Well, I think what I hope I have been. It has been shocking to me watching how little history people seem to know. On social media, especially that there's. And I do love it when a great historical show comes on, and hopefully it will get people to look into history, because there's nothing really more fascinating than reading history. And the history of World War II there's so many facets of it. Like, one of my favorite books that I ever read was Shiner's The Rise and Fall of the Third Reich, which is like a 1,500-page book. And that's just one aspect of it. Then Winston Churchill's history of World War II is quite fascinating. And then seeing these different facets, because literally what was going on in Europe was vastly different than what was going on in the Pacific theater. And so it's an incredibly rich, it's horrifying, but it's an incredibly rich period of history. And I'm glad that, someone like Apple was willing to finance this kind of a show.
Yeah, it must have been one of the most costly shows ever made. And to be honest with you, Robert, during one of the early episodes of Masters of the Air, they talked about protecting the fleet in the Atlantic. I could be getting this wrong, so I apologize if I didn't get this entirely correct. But then I couldn't help but think about Operation Greyhound, another film that Tom Hanks is involved in, where once again, the operation itself, you can find it in a book. You can read about it, how, these convoys went from the United States over to Europe or the UK, and you can read about it. But I have to tell you, Robert, that movie was a completely different experience when I saw what actually happened. And this was just, a small interpretation of the lives that were lost, Robert.
Yeah.
It was terrifying, and I had no idea what I was going to see in that film, and it was an experience I had to have. I could not read and understand that that's what they were talking about. Certainly, I do understand what a convoy is and what it means to sail across the Atlantic Ocean, but I didn't know, Robert, it was like that. And it's interesting, in Masters of the Air, they kind of refer to it. The Butler character talks about not knowing and experiencing what it's like to go up in the air for the first time. Honestly, there are so many experiences like this, and I'm so glad that we seem to be in this era of people wanting to create movies and television of this high caliber quality, but also stuff that is culturally significant, and the sacrifices of people that have been made. Many of the people who made these sacrifices, Robert, are no longer with us. Very little of them are still alive now. Thank goodness somebody is taking, as you said, Apple TV, investing in what they think is relevant and should be made.
Well, it's when I was in junior high and high school, my favorite there are two. My favorite TV miniseries were Shogun, which we're on the verge of seeing the new version of it, and The Winds of War, which was about an American family and how they were affected by the lead up and outbreak of World War II. And those are still two of my and my third favorite thing was the BBC's I, Claudius, which was an examination from the Caesars, from Augustus Caesar on up to Claudius. And I think that the more we can see these things, because all of our great stories are derived from history. Whether you want to go back all the way to Scripture, to the Bible, all of the way we sort of codify history, we tell stories about them, and there's so many different stories that come out of especially World War II. you could tell a million different stories about various facets of the war. I mean, even the stuff we've got, like, there's so many great movies. I mean, growing up watching movies about World War II, but we've seen everything from Roman Polanski's The Pianist about surviving, or Saving Private Ryan, and storming the beaches at Normandy, or you can go back and you can watch The Great Escape, The Dirty Dozen, Bridge on the River Kwai, all these different movies about, well, both World War I and World War II, which is amazing. By the way, Gerard Leon became a new member of the channel. We're having a member call tomorrow at 11 o'clock. Thomas Logan is here and says Doug Liman's Roadhouse should open nationwide in premium format cinemas. The straight-to-streaming horse shit needs to end. Cinema is not someone's couch. Now, I've been talking a lot. We were talking a lot on the John Campea show about this movie. I did a whole bit on it. I cut out part of my Robservations and put it up as a short. Now, I've heard a few things since so Doug Liman, he directed The Bourne Identity, he directed Mr. and Mrs. Smith, he directed Swingers and the movie Go with an early Timothy Olyphant film. He directed Edge of Tomorrow, the Tom Cruise, Emily Blunt science fiction film. So he did this remake for Amazon Studios, and he was promised a theatrical release, and they dropped the trailer, and it's going to go direct to streaming. Now, I thought the movie looked great. I mean, Roadhouse is not a great movie. It's a B movie that's a lot of fun, but it's not. I mean, it's Coyote Ugly is not as good as Roadhouse, but Roadhouse isn't a good movie. I have no illusions. A lot of people like Roadhouse, but it's not good. It's a total fun Joel Silver B movie, product of the late 80s, early 90s. So I don't understand. Like, I look at the trailer with Jake Gyllenhaal, and I'm like, this looks like a better remake than the Point Break remake that we got, and that was theatrical. So I'm looking at that. You've got Connor. You got a great UFC star in the movie. It's got that UFC tie-in, and now they're going to send it not theatrical, which I made the case that I thought that was really stupid. Well, now I heard something interesting today. I heard an industry friend of mine said the movie's not good, or that Amazon doesn't think it's good. And I'm like, okay, Doug Liman said that the movie tested really, really high. And he said it's one of the best movies he's made. Now, it's Roadhouse. It's not like Oppenheimer. So in terms of what Roadhouse is supposed to be, I would posit, now I haven't seen the movie, so I can't tell you whether it's good or bad. But you know what I thought when I saw the movie, when I watched that trailer?
What?
I'm like, this movie's going to get fucking canceled. There's going to be a bunch of people. I was thinking the reason people, and I have no evidence to support this, but this movie is a celebration of toxic masculinity.
Yes.
And I'm like, that's right. And if you were making this movie, that's what this movie's about. It's about dudes getting drunk at that Roadhouse, beating the shit out of each other.
Yes.
And it's about Gyllenhaal rolling into town. The woman that hires him, they probably get into a relationship. So we'll get a little something, a little bumping some uglies outside up against the Roadhouse at night. Probably pouring beer over each other as they lick it off their naked, beautiful, glistening physiques. You know what we're talking about here. That's what we're. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, how do you make that movie? And here's the thing. You're making it with Doug Liman. You're making it with Gyllenhaal, who's in amazing shape. You have a tie-in with UFC. For that alone, that movie's going to do $30 million opening weekend. And if it goes on to streaming, it makes $0. So I'm that trailer, I'll go see that movie because I'm sure that trailer is exactly what you're going to get. I don't think we've seen the best parts in the trailer. I think we've seen in the trailer, it gives you an overall feel of what this movie's about. And Thomas Logan is correct. It's like, I want to go Friday night. I want to get hammered. Then I want to go to the theater, maybe sneak a few beers in. Or better yet, you don't have to sneak beers in now because some of the theaters serve alcohol. I can get a double Jameson rocks and a beer back, and I can sit there and watch this thing. And I'm thinking, after Barbenheimer, why won't you promote this movie the way it's supposed to be promoted? Like, why aren't you turning this into an event? And I made the point, everyone knows Roadhouse. Roadhouse,
Yes.
Roadhouse was directed by a man whose first name was Rowdy. Rowdy Harrington directed Roadhouse. And I'm like, how in this day and age do you not embrace the Roadhouse-ness of it all?
Yeah.
And like, no, we're going to put it on streaming. You are depriving half of the American audience and much of the world of the fun of going to see Roadhouse opening weekend, getting hammered, cheering in the theater, watching heads get busted. I mean, just the scene with Gyllenhaal slapping those dudes in the face in the trailer. I'm like, who doesn't want to see this movie?
It's a Reacher moment. It reminds me of Reacher. You want to see pounding. You want to see badassery. You want to see muscles. You want to see sex. There's so
Serinda
much.
Swan and Reacher. Bow, chicka, bow, bow, wow, wow. Come on. Beautiful people writhing in ecstasy.
Mhm.
And then they go just kill a bunch of fools. Reacher, you know, some people were telling me that, well, you know, Reacher wasn't as good as season 1 and all this. I'm like, what are you talking about? I mean,
Mhm.
it was a little different. And by the way, they announced that they're doing the third season of Reacher is based on the 7th. So the Bad Luck and Trouble was the 11th book in the Reacher series, and the first season was the first book. And Persuader is the 7th book, which I read. That was the first Reacher book I read was Persuader. It's good. He goes undercover. And
Nice.
Neely comes back, but the rest of the team wasn't in the book. But I'm sure it's going to be great. Alan Ritchson, that guy, just the way he walks, you know, like he's uncomfortable, like he's just going to open a can of whoop ass on just everyone. Who doesn't like I've missed that. And I'm sure that hearing somebody at Amazon's like, oh, it's not good. I'm like, somebody was probably offended by it. And it's like, the world's going to get hard, and I don't mean hard like erect. I mean hard like difficult. Like people are going to have to man up. And when I say man up, I mean man up. Because it's not going to be, I don't identify that way. Oh no, you're going to get identified that way because you're going to get hit in the face if you're not careful. Because the draft is coming back. The world's going to go to hell in a handbasket. You know, I was watching one of the NATO leaders from Sweden. I was watching a speech he was giving. He's like, you all don't seem to understand. We've been living in peacetime, and we've taken for granted that peace is the way that we normally are. But the exact opposite is true. Warfare is usually where peacetime is not something that we've really known. I mean, there's always been fires that we need to put out, but we're looking at another worldwide conflagration that could possibly happen. And we need Reacher, and we need Dalton. His name's still Dalton. They didn't change his name. Everybody needs their Roadhouse.
Yeah, and we were talking a few weeks ago about films that are not great films that we love. I know you mentioned Tough Turf. I mentioned Aspen Extreme. I think Roadhouse was incredibly popular and has a cult following. Yes, the
Totally.
film is not exactly what I would call, an incredible film, but I've watched it more times than I've watched a lot of other films, Robert. And
Because it's fun. It's fun.
Yeah, and I think there needs to be films like Roadhouse out there where we can enjoy ourselves. And I personally would have released it in the summer. That's what I would have done. Or, let's say right after Easter or something like that. So, I think that the film would have performed pretty well. Iron Claw, which is another film about wrestling and wrestling family, didn't do that great. But I think the reason why Iron Claw didn't do as well is because the marketing campaign was
it's also a tragedy. I mean,
well, that's true.
It's not a feel good wrecking fools movie, even though there's some of that. But Joey Johnson says, shout out to RM and Darth Plato for the watch along today. It was great seeing her reaction to things, and Darth Plato really had great knowledge.
Yes, thank you, Joey, for being there. It's such a pleasure to see you. It's always great, and thank you for the support.
Eduardo Ramirez says, is Superman Returns underperformance to blame why DC is where it is now? Oh, I don't think so. Domino effect. If Superman Returns 2 came out in 2009 and Superman Returns 3 and 13, no Man of Steel, no Snyder DCEU. No, because remember, Superman Returns underperformed, but then you had Nolan's Batman trilogy, and you had The Dark Knight that came out after Superman Returns, and that entirely eclipsed Superman entirely. And then so Christopher Nolan and Zack Snyder were going to be the architects of the DCEU moving forward. No, I think that I was talking to my friend Darren Scott, who's a director, about this just the other day, yesterday, as a matter of fact. And he made the point, and the point that I've made as well, is that the thing that killed the DCEU was that I really like Man of Steel. I like Zack Snyder's Man of Steel. But there is no joy in it. I mean, I liked it because it was a realistic take. If two Kryptonians were fighting in a metropolitan area, it would be 10 times 9/11. And the movie, it's not fun. So there was no way to take a realistic bent to a Superman movie, show that kind of thing. You had an extinction level event with those world machines. So, and then people were upset. It's so funny to watch people get upset. Well, Superman killed somebody. Like, what was he supposed to do? Imprison him on the moon? I mean, he's been Superman for a couple weeks. He doesn't even have a code of ethics yet. And he's dealing with an extinction level event. He saved billions of people from extinction. And people are mad that he killed one Kryptonian. Or, oh, he wasn't able to rescue civilians. I'm like, that was the point. That was the point, showing what would happen if Kryptonians were real and they were really fighting on Earth. And I loved that. But the thing is that the tone of it was so downbeat and dour. It wasn't fun. Like when you came away from Superman Returns, from Man of Steel, you wouldn't want that to happen to our planet. Buildings collapsing, and then they doubled down with Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. As much as I enjoy that film because I like the sort of heavy metal album cover nature of what Zack Snyder was doing, there is no joy in that. I mean, I understand people like it. I like it too, and I love Zack Snyder's Justice League. But you can't build a universe around that. You can't take kids to those movies. Those aren't movies parents enjoy. Those are these oppressive, heavy metal, thrashing guitar riff, Molly Hatchet, Death Dealer album cover. Those movies were never going to work. The DCEU, look at Aquaman. Makes $1 billion. Aquaman was goofy fun. That's what I think James Gunn's going to do. James Gunn's going to go the total opposite direction.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think. Eduardo Ramirez, I don't think it was that. I think it was the fact that Zack Snyder's take on Superman, I thought it was incredibly well executed, but then the death of Jonathan Kent was really dumb in that movie. Just like the death of Jonathan Kent was really dumb, and the whole Martha, why did you say that name thing was really dumb in Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. Like, why couldn't they, if they had made a movie where it was just Batman and Superman, like if you had made, and I'll tell you what else I also believe, they needed to make an individual Batman movie with Ben Affleck first. It was a mistake, and they should have introduced Wonder Woman in that movie, but not shown her as Wonder Woman. They should have just shown her as Diana Prince, this really hot chick that Bruce Wayne was really into. They don't even necessarily had to say who it was. They could have kept it a secret that she was actually Wonder Woman, and then introduced her in Dawn of Justice.
Yeah, that would have been fantastic. But unfortunately, we didn't get that. Robert.
No. Brian Johnson became a new member. Irene Jobson is here.
Hi, Irene.
Irene says she likes to poke bears and eat avocado toast. And that's why we love you. What do you poke the bears with? Don't answer that. I don't know if we can handle that yet. Kenneth Colton says, wonderful to see you all back together again. Lael is going to come later. Such a glorious day. Purchased tickets for Dune Part 2 in IMAX for the early fan screening on February 25th and in Dolby on the 29th. Wow. I cannot wait for this film. I can't wait for it either. Everyone I've talked to about, they showed 10 minutes of Dune. They showed Paul riding the sandworm, a big famous moment, and everyone said it's incredible. And I interviewed Greg Fraser, the director of photography on Designing Hollywood, and he said he likes it a lot more than the first film.
Oh, wow.
He saw it. He's like, I was blown away. And he was telling me that he says it on the interview, but he was telling me after and before how incredible the movie is. And it's funny because he was like going, he was saying, he goes, you know, I worked on it. Like I shot the entire movie. And he's like, but even though I did that, it's not like when you sit down and watch a movie in the theater. And he was like, I was blown away by Dune Part Two. Just blown away by it. And he also shot the Batman, the Matt Reeves Batman. Mm-hmm. So that was cool. So Kenneth Colton said, I can't wait. So I can't either. Are you excited for Dune 2?
Yeah, of course I'm excited, and I hope it is an improvement over the first one. I think that there was just a little something missing from the first one, but production-wise, it looked amazing. And if the production value remains the same or is better, I don't think, honestly, maybe you can't get better than the production value in Dune. But I think if 2, we get, they push the boundaries a little bit more, especially with some of the other families and groups. We can see things that we haven't seen yet, but are kind of expecting to see. That would be wonderful. That 3 worm shot that you were talking about, I think it was a 3 worm shot. I could be wrong. That was in the trailer. It looked, terrifying. But I certainly hope we get more character development, Robert, because we need it.
Yeah, I mean, that was the one thing that I have look, I thought Dune was an incredible experience, but the thing that bothered me the most about Dune is all of the scenes with people, like the whole Gom Jabbar scene where Paul goes and meets Mother Mohiam, and she tests him. That was, you could tell because of the length of the movie, those scenes when they talk, people were talking to each other, they were cut to the bare minimum. So you never got to really enjoy scenes of people talking to one another. I mean, I was expecting that scene to be twice as long as it was. I mean, Charlotte Rampling never took her, you never saw her face. She left. So all of these scenes, they were cool and everything, but they don't last long enough where you can sit back and enjoy them. Just as you're enjoying the interplay between the characters, it moves on to another scene. And you could tell they did that because the movie was running long. And I think that the last 20 minutes or 30 minutes of the movie felt the longest because there wasn't the interplay between all the characters. So I don't think the movie's perfect. I do think it's one of the greatest and most evocative and I always talk about verisimilitude, one of the most incredible visions of a science fiction world ever created. And obviously, Dune Part 2, there's a jihad. The war starts. Paul and the Fremen, and we'll see all the machinations of the Padishah Emperor and his daughter Irulan, and we meet Fade Ralpha, and we're going to see what's going to happen with more of Stellan Skarsgård. And so there's a lot more going on. And that knowing that they're going to do the third part, which is, I mean, people who haven't read Dune don't realize that Paul Atreides kills billions of people. So, I mean, billions of people. He is not a white savior. And I want to see that too. So please, everybody, go to Dune 2. So I think it's going to... Scott Bartholomew, he retracted a message. So I don't know what you said, Scott, but thank you for the tip. Thomas Logan says, sing it, Bobby and RM. When the night comes falling, when the night comes falling, when the night comes falling from the sky, Swayze Dog is a legend. I don't know that song. Is that I don't know the tune of it.
I don't know it either, but I miss Roadhouse. I miss that.
Wait, you sent in a super chat. Oh, no, you didn't. I was going to say, it's RM. It's our friend RRTNZ. I was like, is that you?
No, it wasn't me. But I miss that, those wooden or dirt floors where all the vinyl's worn off and they throw the sawdust on the ground. I mean, I haven't been to a place like that in years. I miss it so much, Robert.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Absolutely. So 100%. Eduardo Ramirez says, how did Bryan Singer feel about Man of Steel? We know you know, Rob. He liked it. Brian's always very complimentary about other filmmakers' work. It's not what he did. I mean, Brian's also very circumspect. No one is a harsher critic than Brian is about his work. So, RRTNZ says Roadhouse has no remake. Roadhouse needs no remake. Tom Jr. Jackson, you became a new member, Tom?
What?
You're a new member of the channel? Thanks. I appreciate that. Scott Bartholomew says correction, Balance of Terror is based on The Enemy Below. Thanks, Don. Although I did just get Run Silent, Run Deep that Robert Wise directed. It's here somewhere. But yes, that is correct. That's a Star Trek episode. Irene asks, am I credited for my work on Lord of the Rings? Well, I'm credited on the documentaries, but we're not on the films because the films were already done before we hadn't made our documentaries yet. So yeah, I'm credited on the documentaries. But it's interesting on the IMDb, the way they did our documentaries, it doesn't say like Lord of the Rings. It gives us our individual documentaries, which is weird. So if you look on my IMDb, the credits I get are on the ones I actually like produced, that I edited and stuff, but you don't get credit for the fact that I did interviews for the entire disc. Like I did hundreds and hundreds of hours of interviews with people, but I didn't get credit. So it was a whole team effort. But yeah, we did get individual. It's on the extended editions, but it's on the documentary section, so not on the films. However, on movies like Superman Returns, I did get a credit in the end. I got actually 2 credits because I played a part in the movie, and then I was a NASA reporter, and then I was the on-set videographer. So I have a credit actually on the film. So that's a weird thing, but so yes, that's where I'm credited. Scott Bartholomew just says hello.
Hi, Scott. How are you? Scott is a big fan of For All Mankind and many other shows, but I used to see him when he was tuning in when we were doing the watch parties. Good to see you, Scott. Hope you are well tonight.
Now, okay, I got to ask you, did you see the picture of the Dune 2 popcorn bucket?
No, I have not seen the picture of the Dune 2 popcorn bucket.
Okay, well, I'm about to show it to you.
Oh my God.
And you know what, since you haven't seen it, since you haven't seen this, I got to give you the full effect, okay?
Okay.
I guess I'm just going to, let's call this submitted without comment. So let's see if I can, okay, you ready?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes. Oh my God. Oh my God. That is crazy. Oh my God.
So this has been a little controversial, the Dune popcorn bucket.
You think?
Let's take a quick gander now. What comes to mind when you look at this?
It looks like someone's gonna put something in that hole, Robert, and it's not gonna be their hand.
This is from Polygon. Polygon wrote this. Nothing says I'm a huge fan of this popular movie quite like the theater-exclusive popcorn bucket that you can purchase at the concession stand. The Wonka bucket came in the shape of the Chocolatier's iconic hat, while Barbie's was naturally a pink convertible. These things can get kind of pricey, but when you're a hardcore fan, you do what you must. And if you're a fan of the Dune franchise, you might be motivated to go the extra mile. YouTuber Chris Parker posted this picture of the alleged Dune 2 popcorn buckets, and they sure are something. And it's supposed to be one of the big worms. Get it? Ha ha. It totally does not look like something else. And of course, people on the internet are acting totally normal about the gaping orifice. Right? And David Ehrlich wrote, another day working at the multiplex and everyone keeps asking me if they can fuck the Dune 2 popcorn bucket. Buddy, this is an AMC. Of course you can fuck the popcorn bucket. And people, Sarah on social media said, babe, are you okay? You've barely fucked your Dune 2 popcorn bucket.
But I did stick my hand in it.
I'm telling you, That's it's pretty spectacular. So there you go. There is, and kudos to them for making that. I'm sure Irene Jobson's got a big smile on her face, seeing the Dune popcorn bucket.
I'm just so shocked by what I'm seeing. I was gonna buy it, but I didn't know it looked like that, Robert.
I think you know what? I think it's a necessity. If you don't get a Dune 2 popcorn bucket, what kind of person are you? I think we all need. So Joey Johnson says, please bring a picture of the Dune 2 popcorn bucket up. It's sexually disturbing. Or is it? No, all I see is a sandworm.
Yeah. I don't know whether I want to put my hand in there, Robert.
Oh, I know I do. I just, kudos. It's funny? Somebody had to design this, and it had to go through levels of approval. And, people had to talk about it and say, that's we have to make this. And the studio approved it. And then they got it at AMC. Can you imagine?
And there's probably thousands of these out there, Robert. Thousands just waiting for someone to purchase and stick their hand in there to get the goodies, Robert.
That's right.
Getting those goodies.
I'm going to fist my popcorn bucket. I mean,
that's right.
Wow. Wow.
I bet there's a surprise in there, Robert. Maybe not just popcorn. Who knows? Hopefully, I don't know. I remember I've seen movies where people put the popcorn bucket on their lap. It's not a metal one. And, there's a surprise in there. So who knows, Robert, what could be in store in this popcorn bucket?
Well, it's you can't fear. Fear is the mind killer. And when you stick your hand in the bucket, just like when you stick your hand in the Gom Jabbar, or the Gom Jabbar is this. The Gom Jabbar, if you stick your hand in, she's going to kill you with the Gom Jabbar, but you stick your hand in the bucket.
You might not want to take your hand out.
Hey, man, when I can get my hand in a bucket like that, you just want to leave it there. Why would you want to?
Feelers around the rim.
Yeah,
Robert. The feelers around the rim are. But the scalloped edge feels very industrial. It doesn't feel very worm-ish. I think if it was the worm, it would have been like little kind of things that would have grabbed onto your hand after you inserted it, and you wouldn't be able to get your hand out easily.
I don't even know what to say to that.
My advice, get your popcorn with butter. That's all I'm going to say.
So I forego the butter and I go with salt and chocolate. Like I like to throw in some peanut M&Ms in my popcorn. Sweet and salty. That's what I like.
This is going to be an experience you won't forget, Robert.
Yeah,
none of us will.
That's true. Ernest Rister says, "Dear Earl of Erudition, whole lot of chatter today about Tron Legacy maybe coming to 4K, just letting you know." Well, I would imagine, it used to be that when studios would put out a sequel that they would release the movies that came before on disc. So Disney has not released anything recently of their legacy titles of their catalog on 4K. They should have done Tron and Tron Legacy for their 100th anniversary. They've got Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes coming out. I mean, that was formerly a Fox property. I've been bitching online for days about the fact that they have no plans to put the Planet of the Apes movies out in 4K that they own. I hope if they put it out in 4K that they somehow salvage my Making of Tron documentary, and they should put both Tron, because Tron looks great in HD. It looked great in 4K, but I'd love to see Tron Legacy and Tron come out in 4K with the Dolby Atmos track, because that Daft Punk score is a banger. One of the great scores of the modern age. So I'd love to see it. Riley Rayburn says, speaking of Superman Returns, I wrote a horror script which, in secret, every character in it was named after someone who worked on Superman Returns, and Rob is one of the co-leads. Wow.
Oh, wow.
Well, thank you. That's very nice, Riley. I would like to see what you did with that.
Yeah.
Thomas Logan says, look up When the Night Comes Fallen by Jeff Healey. Oh, I'll have to do that. I can't play that on the show, though, because then then it would.
W- Was the Tron track? Is it D-Res? D-Res
D-Res
or
is one of them, but
yeah,
they scored the whole movie. I mean
yeah,
that whole soundtrack is amazing.
yeah. It really
It's
is.
amazing. Now, here's a good question, and I'd love to get your take on it. Scott Bartholomew asks, thoughts on the Taylor Swift AI pornographic images controversy.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
Yeah, I have the same feeling about that as I have about the George Carlin AI controversy. And I think that she and all these other celebrities where this is happening need to fight back. If they're the ones who have to make changes about AI, let it be them. They have the money to fight this. But this needs to be outlawed right away and it needs to stop. And, I know people want to watch this stuff. I know they're tempted to do it. And there are going to be people who watch it. But I personally have no desire to see anything like that ever.
Well, it's the thing about it is, here's okay. So those of you who don't know, there's some really raunchy, sexually explicit pictures of Taylor Swift. Well, that cat is out of the bag. I mean, it's going to be anybody, any person now, any girl, is now subject to old girlfriends, girls that you're going to school with. Anybody can use AI and make sexually explicit pictures of anyone else. And to me, this is just the tip of the iceberg of where we're at with AI. I mean, I think we should make it, we should outlaw it, because the thing is, you're making a likeness, just like you can't use somebody's likeness willy-nilly without paying for it. And AI has now completely circumvented any kind of controls. And what it's done is, I mean, the only thing that keeps human beings from being savages, the only thing that has pulled us up from the muck or when we got out of the trees, is civilization. And civilization is that we all agree to abide by certain rules. Like we all agree, okay, we're going to stop at red lights. We create all of these things that give us civilization. The United States has the Bill of Rights. We have the Constitution. And we all agree for the most part that we're going to abide by these things. If it's possible, an AI is already out of the bag, I think we should absolutely, in the public sphere, regulate this and make really, really, really strict laws against it. Because here's the thing. Just because it's AI generated doesn't mean it's not Taylor Swift's face. You're putting her likeness, and the likeness is incredibly realistic. So it's a philosophical question, it's a moral question, and you could say, people are going to say, well, it's not really her. No, it is. It's her. You're duplicating her, and then people are going to fight it as a free speech issue. And then it's like, okay, well, then Taylor Swift, I mean, what's she going to do, sue everybody? We need to make it a personal liberty issue. And we need to do it right away. And make it like if you make sexually explicit material, we should regulate it the way we regulate child pornography. Make it our strictest, because if we don't, we're going to lose control of it. It'll erode our civilization in ways that we can't. Everybody's going to make sexually explicit pictures of everyone. And Taylor Swift, do you think people aren't already trading horrible AI photos of kids and horrible? I mean, it's already at a point where it's out of control.
And I think what's going to happen, Robert, we know there's a thing called sextortion, which is when they contact people, they coerce a person. You think you're talking to a real person. You're not. You send them photos of yourself and they say, if you don't give us money, we're going to go ahead and plaster these all over the place. To be honest with you, it's going to be like a robocall. It's like, I have your photos. It's going to be spammed. We're going to get spammed with
and they don't even need you to send nude photos. They're just going to do it of you.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea that those compromising photos, no one's going to know what's real and what's not real. And it serves to erode our civilization away.
Yes.
and it seems we have to take a stand. But I'll tell you something. I think that what I'm seeing now with our civilization is people don't want to take a stand. We're now, oh no, if it's what you feel or what we have to take a stand. There's no more. You have to come up and go. You have to put your foot down. I mean, I think that we have to put our foot down because she's a celebrity and she's in the public sphere, and people can say, well, she put herself there. Yeah, but she didn't put herself there. She's a singer. And she didn't put herself there to have her image plastered all over the world in sexually explicit pictures where it says FKME on her butt cheeks. That's not what she signed up for. And our civilization, if we decide to live in it, because if we don't want to live in a civilization anymore, then let's just take all the guardrails away. Let's take the Bill of Rights and throw it away. Let's just do what Hamas did in Israel on October 7th. Let's just become inhuman monsters and decide to rape, murder, and pillage and just destroy everything. And
what about the fact that George Carlin's estate doesn't like it? And he was raunchy, I don't think insulting, but raunchy. His comments were raunchy. And they're like, we're not having this. We're not going to have you take his likeness and say whatever the hell you want to say about it. It's not cool. We don't care that you think you're being creative and smart and funny. To be honest with you, I don't think it's not exactly the same thing. But when Steamboat Willie went into the public domain and people decided that they were going to make horror films out of that, I don't think that's a good idea either. I think that there's even an aesthetic of taste of certain IPs out there that people shouldn't even be touching and doing horrendous things with.
Well, no, and it's going to be because look, they're human beings are terrible. We have to. AI is going to allow people to indulge in their worst. The worst of us are going to be able to immediately indulge our worst natures, and I think what's going to happen is, once that begins. Once we allow and we don't have any constraints, there are no guardrails. And right now there are no guardrails. You can do whatever you want with AI imagery. And you can make the most realistic. I mean, I can only imagine what is already being done, what's already being traded on the dark web, what's already going on. And I do think overall it escalates the human tolerance for inhumane behavior. And it gets to the point where, and we see it now, and the fastest way, and we've seen it, Marxism is you can look at what are the things that Marxists were allowed to do in the 20th century was you dehumanize your opponents. You turn them, you make them the enemy. And once you dehumanize your opponents, then it's easy, hey, they don't deserve to live. And it makes it easy to exterminate other human beings. This kind of thing it's dehumanizing all of us at once. It's taking the actual sanctity of people's bodies and stripping it away en masse on a gigantic societal platform. And what it does is it normalizes that kind of behavior, and it diminishes all of us across the board.
It is an exploitation of personal property. Now all of a sudden, even your likeness is not your own. Your voice is not your own.
No.
The way that you move your thoughts and concerns, and in particular with the Cartland situation, where his thoughts are not his own anymore. It's more than just saying that I'm going to, or I want to be a comedian that has similar thoughts and feelings like George Carlin. You're taking the actual person's likeness and creating another version of him. It is actually him. And now you're making it appear as if these are words that were coming out of his own mouth when he was alive. So it is very deceptive. There is nothing on there saying this is a recreation. This is not the real person. This is just nobody knows that. When you see these recreations, and we've seen a lot of them from TikTok, on Facebook, it looks like the person in question. So many celebrities, almost all of them have these fake ads for everything under the sun. Robert.
Mr. Beast. Mr. Beast, there was recently the fake ads on social media where he said, I'm giving away iPhone 15s. It wasn't him. You know, and I think this is one of those moral.
It's a security issue, Robert. It's a security.
It's a
issue.
personal security issue because look, how all to damage anyone, you can damage somebody professionally, politically, any way you want. And this is one of those moments where we as humanity at large is going to have to make a choice. And it's going to have to step up and say, we will not tolerate this. And because our basic instincts, I mean, if you look at the way entertainment technology went, I mean, I could have told you this. What is the first thing that AI is going to be used for en masse? Porn. That's what happened with home entertainment. The porn industry led the way with home entertainment. With what did people do when they first could get VCRs? They got porn. And the porn industry proliferated.
And the same for the internet, how the internet became,
Star Trek and pornography built the internet, according to Rick Berman. People want to talk about Star Trek and look at porn. And the thing is now people can make their own personalized pornography with anyone they want. Their friends, their neighbors, even their siblings. I mean, whatever fucking weird shit people want to do. And unless somebody steps up and says no. And we see a lot of pushback. We have the New York Times is suing OpenAI because they're scrubbing the internet. All of this stuff has to be controlled now, because if it isn't, it is going to degrade our society to such an extent that we might never recover. Or if we do recover, it'll take, we might need. Speaking of Dune, the Butlerian Jihad, where they get rid of all computers. You will never make another computer in the shape or in the appearance of a human mind again. We might already be there, as much as we need computers. And maybe when the cyber attacks come, like in when World War III finally breaks out and the cyber attacks come, maybe destroying all of our computer systems will be exactly what we need. Because if we're gonna do this kind of, and make no mistake, this is emotional terrorism. On a global scale.
And it is the bastardization of art. I think that the original intention of this artificial intelligence was never for this intention. And I think the person, I would like to think whoever came up with this concept was horrified when they realized what was being done with it. It very much is something that should be put literally in the Constitution that prevents people, from doing this pretty much on a global scale, because it's going to go global and it's going to outnumber, kind of like what's happening on YouTube, where we have these fake science sites where they talk about science and it's not a legitimate science site, but it's a YouTube channel and there's thousands of them on YouTube. Eventually, a lot of actual human sites are going to be pushed aside by these artificial intelligence sites, Robert. They're going to take our likenesses right here and they could recreate the show. They could create Midnight Musings somewhere else.
Well, absolutely. And by the way, we've got Lael Rockwell here to join us. Lael.
Hey, Lael.
I'm gonna tell you what's not artificial. Your face.
But
Rita, your face is not artificial.
Aww. Thank you.
Okay.
That's one of a kind, real, 100% authentic.
Thank you.
So Lael, we were just talking about the demise of all of humanity with AI. Do you have any thoughts about the Taylor Swift AI scandal, where there was explicit photos of her created and put on the internet? I mean, you're a father. Would you want someone to do that to your daughters?
Hell no.
So how do you feel like, do you think we should put regulations in place?
I think there should be regulations just about on everything. No, honestly, let me see, bro. Like, I mean, you know what? With AI, bro, like I said, it's just like any type of, it's like a virus, bro. Like, there's always it's going to find a way to get through no matter what. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like, so you can stop it from one standpoint, as long as it's out there and there's ways, that, ways to get around anything. You can't, it's already out there now, bro. Like
Yeah.
AI is always, it's already a thing. It's already something, an instrument, not going to say instrument of destruction, but it put it this way. AI works two ways. One, there are good ways to kind of utilize it, things out there that, could help. It can improve in one aspect, but it can be very, very destructive if used poorly. And if there aren't any regulations on
Right.
it, ways to really control it. But as we see, you can't really control it. Like it's something that can't be controlled.
No.
You know what I mean? How many AI generators do we actually have out there, bro? Constant AI generators
A million.
do we actually exactly?
At least
So
a million. And
there's
a lot of them
no
are
way.
on YouTube.
There's no way to do, and I can understand, her, or with the whole scandal, her being upset, or anyone being upset, if it's exploited, if it's used, to really sort of like degrade, or it happens, bro, because again, we do have people out there with a perverted sense of humanity. You know what I mean? So
no, we have a large percentage of the human.
Yeah.
Like I've already said, look, I like being alive. I like being a human being, all that. But human history is full of our horribleness. There's a lot more of horribleness than there is goodness in the human animal.
There are sites literally out there. I couldn't, bro. There are sites there. My brother showed me this shit, and I could not believe it. There's a couple of them, like millions of them. There are sites out there where people look for celebrity feet. Like, that's insane.
Of course.
They look for celebrities' feet, bro.
But now they can be AI generated.
Yeah.
But if you think about this.
Yeah.
Think about the worst impulses of humanity.
Yeah. Yeah.
You now have people using AI to generate the most horrible imagery that you can possibly imagine, and people are trading that imagery. It's already out. It already exists to the point where, unless it's the only way to change things is that human beings. The only way we're the ones that imbue life with its own meaning. We're the ones that decide to be citizens and create culture.
Yeah.
And we have to put guardrails up. We have to shame people. It's just like, if you look at what's gone on with say acceptance for people that are LGBTQ or non-binary or whatever, and how that kind of acceptance has come around pretty quickly. And everybody will and look at you. Well, how can you not accept these people or whatever? We need that kind of a push times 1,000 about AI victimization. And it has to happen now. And I think that the one thing with Taylor Swift that could happen is that people are going to be like, "How dare you do that to her?" And by the way, the fact that we can have a casual discussion about her being exploited in this way shows us how terrible we really are. The fact that we're not all incensed about I mean, it's Taylor Swift and people, oh, she's just another rich. Look, she was a human being that grew up, a talented girl. She started singing country music, a good family. I mean, you can be as cynical as you want that she's grown up and become a pop superstar. But the thing is, she's a human being. And she should be a test case and go, you know what? Are we going to put up with this or not? And the only way you can do that is to look at people and go, if you're consuming this material, you're a bad person. And we have to come out, and our culture has to say that. It has to say that legally. We have to say that morally. We have to say it publicly. And we have to put our foot down and say, we are not going to allow this. Right now, no one is saying it.
You know where it gets kind of hard too as well, Rob, is the simple fact that people will look at this and say, well, okay, this is happening to Taylor Swift, but what if this happens to someone of lesser value?
It's going to happen to everybody. It's going to happen.
But this is what I'm saying.
Kids are already doing it to their classmates.
It's already happening right now.
Everywhere.
This is already happening. You can feed an AI generator anything you want, and what it produces is astounding. Like you can feed, we already know this. You can feed like right now. Like what do we get every day? You can put images in there. It'll create you as a business person. It'll create you as an astronaut. It'll create you as an actor or an athlete. Anything that you want, anything that you desire right now, when you're feeding this generator. And that's the thing, is like the biggest argument that everyone had, it was like, well, there's so many of them. There's so many of these generators that are out there right now. It's hard to control that aspect of it. But a lot of people will say, okay, we're having this argument now, but where is the argument for the average person who's going through this every single day? Because I'm telling you, Rob, sometimes with these AI generated images, it is hard to distinguish what's real and what isn't.
Oh,
like
no,
it is
100%.
so hard.
Well, I mean, wait till you have murder generators. Like, do you? I mean, when you think about that, you're going to have photorealistic. You'll be able to be part of Hamas. Let's recreate and rape and murder the people who lived in kibbutzes, and you'll be able to recreate them in photorealistic environments. This is, by the way, going to happen.
But this is happening now, Rob. Did you see the
video?
There are videos out there right now that have been created of individuals. So you can feed AI an image. It can create a scenario, a realistic scenario with real people. But what it does is it takes an image, you feed it, and it can create you in that space. So say, for instance, you can create a kidnapping scenario. You can create a what type of scenario is it? On the run, in a war zone, stuff like that.
Yeah.
To make people perceive that it's perceived that you're in the line of fire, and you're screaming for your life or you're running for your life. This is something that can be produced right now. So just imagine if somebody created that video, use it as a tool to send somebody in your family and say, this person is struggling, they need such and such. It's already happening right now. Like where people are using these AI generators to make money and to scam. To extort and stuff like that. So it's happening.
Any YouTuber, anybody who's been on, you could digitize our voices, like RM was saying.
Years and years and years on this platform. Eventually, the ARs are going to look at our particular likenesses and recreate it. There's nothing we can do. We can't go ahead and pull that down because they'll say it's their creation. Meanwhile, people will think that they're watching us. It's disturbing.
No, and I'll tell you something. It'll get to the point where in a year or 2 or 3, let's say that I personally am like, well, I'd love to talk about this. I'm just going to be like, have me talk about, let me riff about Star Trek for like 15 minutes. And I hit a button and it'll just pop up and it'll make a Robservations episode and I'll look like I'm talking about Star Trek for 15 minutes. And the algorithm will already take everything I've ever said about Star Trek and filter it through, and I'll be able to and here's another thing. I mean, you could say, oh, okay, I would love to lecture on, I don't know, French Baudelaire, have me and cross-reference it with Star Trek, or any French philosophers or Goethe, German philosophers or something. And I'll just pontificate, and what AI will do is just take all this whatever's out there, and it'll make me pontificate about whatever I want, and it'll be and you will not be able to tell the difference. And that's why I've said, at the beginning of Robservations, the Critical Drinker was on the Russell Brand show and quoted me, and I said that the real currency of the 21st century is going to be personal authenticity.
Yes.
That and human beings we have to make our own personal authenticity a number one priority of our civilization moving forward. Because if we don't prize the sanctity of an individual, a real human being, I mean, you'd think that we would, but we don't. We don't. We've spent our entire, for the last 100,000 years, human beings have spent their lives on this planet wanting to get rid of other groups of human beings for whatever reason. Well, now we've created technology that can do just that. Not only that, here I'll go even further. Does it matter if we exist anymore? Like, if I were to die tomorrow, would that matter if I have AI generated Rob Burnett that can do Robservations for whoever wanted it for the rest of my life? How is my life, how does any of our lives have any meaning at all if our personas are AI generated? The only thing that's going to matter is if people are going to be, if they're in a way, it could be a backlash against all of this. People just shut their screens, and the only way you're going to know what's real is if you're standing in front of a real human being.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's pretty much
in 10 or 20 years, maybe even that, with the technology of robotics and human beings, it'll get so good that you won't replicants, whatever. But we need to start these talks right now and figure out what's going on, because, I mean, it might get to the point where we all have to turn off our computers.
Not even just your computer, bro. But again, it's you might as well figure that you've half the population, almost the entire population, has given permission to have your image. I mean, again, when you're using face recognition on your cell phones, you've given that permission already. You know what I mean? You've already given that permission, whether you want to believe it or not. You've already given that permission to use your image, to scan your image, use your image for any type of identification, and it's already out there. So people have access to it. Anytime you basically take a selfie,
you're gonna have to give blood,
bro. Exactly. Like, so that's what I'm saying. Like, all of this is already out there, but we've sort of known that this is the way the world was. This is the direction the world was going a long time ago.
Yeah.
When this technology was actually introduced, it's already out there. It's already definitely, they're talking about right now, like, even when you travel, like, you know, we noticed how when the pandemic hit, there were less people. Like, if you're traveling and you're going past these toll booths, there's no one there. Like, you basically either go past, you have to use Easy Pass or whatever. Now they're talking about face recognition.
It used to be police officers, and Bill remembers this, in the New York City toll, when you would go to any bridge
all the time.
Always, after a while, it was police officers who were the ones who were you would pay, you know, the money to, or they would make sure that your Easy Pass would, you know,
exactly.
Not anymore. You would be coming to a thing where you check in. It's not ordinary people; they'd be cops.
Yeah.
So you're like, I better slow down. I better slow down my vehicle.
Not anymore.
And they
face
look
recognition
hard too. Like, they kind of look in, and you're like, you know, just behave, and then you go through. But now there's nobody there.
And they're trying to implement, that's what I'm saying. They're trying to implement face recognition. Like, they're not now, but this is the way they're going. They're testing that for face recognition.
It's already, I mean, in Europe, if you look at, like,
that's it.
The UK, there's cameras everywhere. You know, they can track you wherever you go.
We've proven that cameras are pretty much everywhere in New York. Jonathan Majors, everywhere he ran, everywhere he went.
Oh, yeah.
The camera was right there. I didn't realize how many cameras were in New York until then, but I realized that there were that many cameras in there, especially after 9/11. So a lot has transpired. Things have taken shape, and it's completely right now. It's Rob, honestly, to be quite honest, bro, it's almost uncontrollable. It's almost to a simple fact that we have these discussions on how things should be controlled. As humanity, we should stand up. The most humane way is to stand up against it. But as long as technology exists and it's allowed to evolve the way it has, it's not going anywhere, especially when it comes to, like, these scams. It's crazy, bro.
But I do think, though, in the case of using AI to recreate someone, it becomes an issue of it's like a free speech issue. You now have to turn it into, you can't besmirch the sanctity of a human individual. A human person has to be somehow maintained in the era of AI, because if anybody can suddenly become fodder for anyone else's fantasies or whatever, like, you know, let's say, I mean, I'm sure, you know, look at the flip side, a very sci-fi look at something. Say you have people that are real psychopaths. There's going to be, you could use AI, and instead of having these people out on the streets, you could create virtual reality places where they can live out their fantasies in a virtual environment where no one is actually being harmed. I could see that being something that would be useful to use in therapy, or maybe to stop psychopathy from running rampant in our culture for real. But the fact is, they're going to have to develop that technology. And how do you know that technology won't then take somebody and push them over the edge because they can delve into it? I mean, it's such a, here's the thing, like so many other things, like so many other cautionary tales that science fiction's been dealing with since its inception. Just because you can do a thing doesn't mean you should do a thing. And our technology is way ahead of our morality and our ability to even comprehend what's out there. I mean, how is a father going to feel when his 16-year-old daughter turns out to be the subject of, when you find out she's starring in internet porn her classmates made, you know, and everyone's sharing it?
Wow.
What's going to happen? And it's already happening. They're already making these kinds of things. Then what do you do? Then who's going to discipline? If our society doesn't say, if we don't have rules going, this is completely unacceptable, and it's going to take maybe Taylor Swift can get out in front of this and demand this to happen, but it has to happen soon, because if a year or two goes by, all bets are off.
We just have to see right now, bro.
You know what? Just
That's
a good
the thing.
pandemic, just wipe out 90% of humanity. It'll sort itself out. You know, I was reading have you read about how the Chinese created a new form of COVID that attacks the brain that's 100% fatal in mice?
No.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was just reading, just a casual news story.
like 2 weeks ago, I read this.
100% fatal in mice. A gain of function COVID research, 100% fatal. I mean, wait till that gets out. I mean, and the fact is, we are now living in a world in a way. I mean, at least with World War II, we started out talking about Masters of the Sky. At least in World War II, we were fighting against tyranny. You know, we were fighting against the axis of evil, or whatever. But now you have multiple groups on the planet, just like before, that are okay with wiping out entire populations of people. It's in their, they want to get rid of, and you've got, I'll just say it right now, on college campuses in America, you have kids chanting "from the river to the sea," which means let's get rid of the Jews. I can't believe that's a group in America. There are kids on college campuses that think that's okay. That we live in a world where genocide, like real genocide, the elimination of an entire group of people, is now acceptable. I never thought after World War II that I would see that. It happened in a matter of months. Well, imagine if it happens, what's going to happen when, we need to get just take your pick. And remember the old adage, you know, when they came for the communists, I didn't speak up because I wasn't a communist. When they came for the trade unionists, I didn't speak up because I wasn't a trade unionist. Then when they came for the Muslims, I didn't speak up because I wasn't a Muslim. Then when they came for the Jews, I didn't speak up because I wasn't Jewish. When they came for the Catholics, I wasn't Catholic, so I didn't say anything. And when they came for me, there was no one left to speak up. I mean, that's an old adage, but we're there, man. We are right back there. And you see this bubbling tension in the world right now. And what is the playbook? Let's dehumanize people to the point where, we can get rid of those people. The Republicans can get rid of the Democrats. The Democrats, let's get rid of the Republicans. You know, we're not even talking about political discourse anymore. We're like, I hate these people. Let's get rid of them. And AI is the perfect tool to foment that. And this is a time,
misinformation, absolutely.
And this is a time when we all have to take a stand. We have to say no. that people are worth protecting. All people are worth protecting. And we need to do that fairly quickly, because we're going into an election year. We're in an election year now, and you can already see battle lines being drawn every single day. And
which you know what the sentiment amongst a lot of people are right now, bro, is it's nothing new.
I know.
That's the attitude right now is nothing new. If it was, I don't, the thing is like when it comes to like really, really heavy political discussions, I try to stray away from it because again, it gets messy.
Yeah.
It's real messy. And I see that on a daily basis. It's always a messy scenario.
But I think
always one of those things where people can take what's being said and construct it and can really, really construct their own narrative. So it's kind of hard to really place yourself in that position, but it's because it's a constant thing. And a lot of stuff is being allowed. A lot of things is being allowed to happen with no kind of control over it. So it's we have
to remove the politics from it. And we have to go back to the individual. What is human life itself worth? And the idea, I say it on this show, every single one of us, every single human being, in the grand scheme of things, in the cosmic infinitude of creation, every single human being is a miraculous occurrence. If you judge it by the cosmos. And we need to start realizing how special and unique, even though there's 8 billion of us on this planet, on a cosmic scale, that's nothing. That's a grain of sand on a beach. And we need to start realizing beyond politics, beyond religion, beyond sexuality, every human being is, as Dr. Manhattan would say, a thermodynamic miracle. And we need to start thinking about ourselves as that. And that each one of us, in the entire universe, there's only one of each of us. Only one. And we need to reform or reformat our thinking to start realizing this, because we're going in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
So, but that said, popcorn bucket, Lael, have you seen this?
No.
Have you seen the Dune 2 popcorn bucket?
No.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
This is real. It's going to be in AMC theaters for Dune 2.
I'm ready. Wow.
So, what do you think, buddy? What is your thoughts?
Will you stick your hand in it?
Do you know there's going to be a whole bunch of perverted activities going on with this thing? People are probably going to buy this thing just because. Oh, man. I mean, I think it's dope. I mean, especially if you know what it's from, and why it's, it's definitely an interesting piece, an interesting choice as well. It's definitely because it's an interesting. Can you imagine what people's thoughts are going to be and what's going to be flying around there right now, and also what's going to end up on SNL?
Oh yeah. I'm sorry, I had to just dip into my organic sea salt popcorn here. Sorry. I know.
I keep thinking about people in the theater, Lael, where you remember like somebody punches a hole through the bottom.
At the bottom, that's it. But this time, there's no reason to punch a hole at the bottom.
Well,
there's no reason. Listen. There's no reason to punch a hole at the bottom or even to have a date.
Yeah, that is true.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, and then
like, is your date sitting there? Oh, no, I'm
tired of doing it solo, or maybe it isn't a solo thing, and you want to add some spice to it. Then you punch a hole in the bottom.
But there's already spice in it. Yeah,
but now you'll have 2 holes.
Sonny Dominguez says, "I'll only buy that popcorn bucket if it squirts butter. Squirts butter, you pervs." Irene Jobson says, "Popcorn bucket or?" And Dee's Webos thinks There's something fishy about that popcorn bucket.
It is a glory
Dude.
hole. I guess it is a glory hole, but
Bro.
how glorious it is. Who knew that those worms were so naughty?
Did they had to have known. They knew this shit. They knew before they produced that. Once they did it, they knew. Yo, what are we doing? Are we gonna still roll with this? Yeah, it's too late now. Let's just go with it.
I wonder if there's suction when you put your hand in.
Well, it's not like it's a
alright.
closed. It's. I mean, I don't know. Maybe. See, now I want to know. And because if there is suction, I don't want to stick my hand in. Come on now.
Well, they hand out condoms when they give you the bucket. Does it come with it or no?
Does it come with batteries?
All I can think of is that if you didn't use it in the right way, it would just make me insecure.
And they also give you a little blue pill just in case.
Oh, okay. By the way, Ostracized Child just sent us a super chat.
Oh,
I think the reason that Ostracized Child is called Ostracized Child is because we ostracized that child. So I appreciate that. Scott Bartholomew wants to know, out of all the Trek iterations, what is your favorite episode? Oh, dude, I can't answer that because every Trek, I look at Treks differently.
yeah.
And so I don't look
Space-
at them as the same. It would be
Emissary, I guess.
that'll be too hard.
I like The Next Generation, the one where the kid gets in trouble and he has to go and rescue him, or Picard has to tell him, I'm just helping you out. And I can't remember what it's called. Those are two of my favorite episodes because he gets in trouble and then he has to like stay at school for another year. I'm like,
That's the First Duty that you're talking about. That's a good episode. Riley Rayburn says, called Death Wish in a Bottle. The main character is, hear this, Brian Siegel. This is his script. It's a very tribute to his singer, also Shyamalan, Raimi, Richard Kelly, Ong Lee. I like that, Riley. I like that. I want to read it. Scott Bartholomew says, today we live in a reprobate society. We do, Scott. Joey Johnson said, please show Lael the popcorn bucket. He missed out on it. Let's see it again, shall we? Here it is, ladies and gentlemen. There it is.
Incredible, man.
There it is. By the way, you just reminded me, I got to give a shout out to your collection tour.
Yeah, man.
Tell us about that. Tell us about finally you and you can see little bits of it in your in
the background.
Yeah, let me get full frame on the background. But tell the folks at home about what you dropped.
Yeah, this was like about 2 weeks ago, or what is it? 2 weeks or a week ago? About almost 2 weeks ago now. I dropped the
I'm gonna
collection tour.
go full frame on you. So here's Lael in the background. You can see some of his collection of hot toys.
Yeah, it was an incredible tour, but the thing is, it's like when we talk about it, it's like what goes into these tours, man. Like the act of making sure that you're either you're getting the right angles, making sure that you're getting the right shots. The amount of footage that you get, editing that footage is a pain, but yeah, man, it was a tour that was long overdue.
And people can find this video on your channel.
Yeah, they can find it on the actual YouTube channel. 16 Scale Man, of course. But you get a chance. And the thing is, bro, that the crazy part is that was part one. Like, that's just part one. I haven't even released part two yet because it was still footage left over. And it was already an hour and a half in. It's like it's a whole hour and a half, so you can stop it at some point and go back and watch it anytime you want. Like, that's not, and the thing is, because people wanted the entire collection, so that's why, like, when we do collection tours, like, I'll probably do it once every 2 years or once every other year, because it's a lot to really consume, especially when you're getting pieces and getting stuff in. You have to display everything the right way if you're creating, like, dioramas with your set. there's definitely a lot to go into. You know what I mean? And it's not easy at all. Like it is not easy, bro, by far. But it's fun to put it out there and to get people's response and to see how they basically respond to it. And the things that they say, and they want to see it. Our collections, they want to actually see what we have.
Yeah.
They want to see like the pieces, some of the Grell pieces that we have. So it's out there. Like once you put it out there, it's out there. And like I said, it's gratifying once you do it, because you don't have to, you don't have to do it like for another 2 years. But it's bro.
It's funny because I'm just here behind me, I keep moving stuff around and I'm building shelves, but like you can see, like over here, I put my Eagle transporter from Space 1999, the Product Enterprises thing, and I keep moving. Like people can't tell, but the comedian's now next to Rorschach, and there's my Picard season 3 figure, and all this stuff's kind of, and you can't see, but above me, on the top of these shelves are all the Hot Toys boxes stacked up. Oh yeah.
So let me ask: did you get that Kurt Cobain?
Dude, no.
Oh,
you know what? I can't believe I didn't pre-order it, because I just figured it's Blitzway and I'll get it. And
it's sold out.
It not only is it sold out, it's selling for like thousands of dollars.
Yeah. Yep.
I'm hoping that they'll make they'll just repop it, because Blitzway's done that before. Mm-hmm. But I didn't think people would, but people that didn't collect action figures bought it. I didn't get the Cobain.
Bro, that Blitzway Kurt Cobain is one of the hottest figures I've ever seen, bro. Like literally.
It's great.
It's
great.
Phenomenal. It's one of the best figures.
I mean, I got my data.
Oh, I see that.
I didn't get Cobain though.
You didn't? Yeah.
No,
I'm surprised you didn't get it, bro.
Well, it was one of those things where I'll tell you something. I just figured I could because nobody wants these musician figures, really. There's never been one that people have, like all the figures I've been able to get easily. You just order them, like the Freddie, even the Freddie Mercury that I have. I didn't get the first time they released, because it was just the clothes and the head sculpt.
Yeah. And
they re-released it again. Justin said, they're going to do it again. Just get it and they repopped it. And I'm like, okay, great. I got it. I went and got, a Fison body for it and put everything on it. So I figured the Kurt Cobain would always be around. I had no idea. And I should have known that. Yeah. But
I thought for sure that would have been the figure that you would have actually gotten. That you would have pre-ordered it right off the rip.
I should have. And I was thinking about it. It was not, because being mortgage poor and stuff, I can't, the pre-order stuff has sort of fallen by the way. So I can't believe that it was just gone.
Yeah. Yeah.
They even remade, like I got the Sharon Stone Blitzway statue, and then they repopped that. So I think they will repop the Cobain figure, because it's a licensed figure, and obviously it's sold out. There's a huge demand, so I think they'll probably do it. Now, speaking of figures, I gotta ask you guys, John. I was on the show to talk about this with John, so I want to talk about it with you. So there is a schism now between what Sony wants to do with the Spider-Man movies and what the MCU does. Yeah. So the MCU and Tom Holland, they want to make a more adult, grounded, less gimmicky, grounded Spider-Man movie. And Sony's like, because remember, Sony is the distributor of the Spider-Man movies. Disney and Marvel, they work with, they don't own Spider-Man. They don't own, so they're in a quandary. They want to do another blowout with multiple Spider-Men. Obviously, Across the Spider-Verse and Into the Spider-Verse did really well for them. But Tom Holland himself for the MCU is like, well, we'd rather do a less gimmicky movie and concentrate on doing something. So my question for the two of you is, what do you think they should do? What if you were in charge and you could decide what kind of a Spider-Man movie, what would you guys want to do?
I would like to see a continuation of No Way Home, and see what happens. And to be honest with you, they could take that whatever way they want to, but I want to see, if he's going to grow up or whatever role he takes on. If it gets serious, if it gets bad, let's just see that. But that should have no bearing over whether, a gimmicky film is made. They could still make that too. I liked the animated, films. I think there's place. That's what I like about that franchise, is that there's a place for both, and people can enjoy one or the other or both or none of them. At least they're actually making good content, as far as I'm concerned.
What do you think, Lael?
Well, see, the thing is, it's tough, man, because you want to see that continuation from, No Way Home. You want to see, this Peter in a position that he's currently in right now, where no one even knows that he's Spider-Man. He's basically right now floating on his own lonely island, trying to get by. Again, we saw at the end of No Way Home, now he's getting his GED, so he can graduate on time. He's going to college now. He's trying to, now it's like reestablishing, or if he would reestablish that relationship with MJ. We want to see, like, we're in a space now where we want to see Peter on his own. You want to see him basically become that friendly neighborhood Spider-Man that we know and love from the comics. So it's a way for him to mature that way. You know what I mean? The problem is, I can also understand that with Sony having the IP, there might be certain things that they want to do with that character, and because they own it, they have the right to want to see that character portrayed a certain way. But again, it's like, you've made that agreement. They were talking about, well, why don't they do, or have Tom in the MCU and have, like, Andrew Garfield or Tobey Maguire. Well, Tobey Maguire had already said that he only wants to do but so many. He's not gonna. He doesn't want to do a trilogy anymore. Like, he doesn't want to, do that aspect of it. I don't know about Andrew. Andrew still wants to complete what he started, but that have two movies within that IP competing against each other, I don't think that'll happen, bro. I don't think that's possible. Because again, like I said, Sony has a direction where they even though it might be an unsuccessful direction, they have a direction that they want to go. By right, they can take it that way. But me, preferably, I would want to see a more grounded version. I would want to see them continue with the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, because then it's an opportunity even to introduce such characters as a live action Miles Morales. I would want to see something like that. I don't want to. What we're seeing right now is this, or if they want to go that route, like, Sony has to be more, and it's, against, in my mind, they have to see what works and what makes it more successful. And if the cinematic universe with Marvel is working, then, why break that? But it's hard, bro. It's a tough situation, bro. I don't know how it's going to end. I just hope it doesn't get messy. I hope it does not get messy to the point where they're just like, fuck it, we're just going to take the character back and just do what we want to do with it.
I had this idea. I was thinking about this. Like, if I was, because I can't help when I'm ever thinking movie ideas, I'm always putting myself in a position of, like, if I was going to make this movie, what would I do? And I would say, okay, what this movie should be is an examination of who is Peter Parker. Because our Peter Parker, Tom Holland's Peter Parker, is now a blank slate. Whereas Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker is one Peter Parker. We know that Andrew Garfield's Peter Parker went down a dark path. And Tom Holland now can be whatever he wants. Peter Parker can be whoever or whatever he wants to be. And Peter Parker's association with Spider-Man. So what might be interesting is if you are traveling and watching each one of these characters as Peter, examine their versions of Peter Parker. And we have to delve into, in each one of their worlds, how are they navigating this world and somehow tie it all together where they all need one another in order to be a whole Peter Parker now. And they all, so I don't know what that would be, but I think you would have to examine the relationship that Peter Parker has to himself and to really the core values of, with great power comes great responsibility. Well, right now, Peter Parker in our universe has no responsibility at all, because no one knows he exists. He's been completely
Yeah.
forgotten. So
Yeah.
what happens to you when your identity has been forgotten by the world? It's never really happened to somebody before.
Mhm.
And all they remember is as Spider-Man. And can you imagine? So when people see Spider-Man, Spider-Man's always Peter Parker, except now
Yeah.
when Spider-Man is no one. So I think you could do that. I agree with you, RM, in that why would you not want to follow up a $2 billion grossing movie
Yeah.
with a storyline where you could really, I think what everybody wants is, rather than do these multiverse gimmicks, as long as people don't care if it's a multiverse, if you're telling a real human story that has real stakes.
Yeah.
And we know that these multiverse, the thing about what they've got with the Spider-Man characters is everybody loves Andrew Garfield, everybody loves Tobey Maguire, and everybody loves Tom Holland.
Mhm.
So you will go with them on the journey of whatever journey you want to tell. And I think that they probably should lean into that. And as long as they come up with a great story, it could be.
Yeah.
I also want to add something else too. And the thing that Spider-Man is an incredible character, but one thing, so I guess you guys already know what I'm going to say. He always is wanting to be in love. Like he's romantic. And I think that is quite indicative of most men, desiring love and wanting to make things special and beautiful. I think that's one of the magical things that's incredibly masculine about him. And I hope if they do follow up with a film, there needs to be, I'm not saying anything has to happen in it, but there needs to be that side of him still. I wouldn't want them to have removed that from him, because every single iteration of Spider-Man I have seen, he's always looking for love. He's always looking for someone to share his life with. And so that's something that I kind of would think that if they decided to, now we're discovering this new side of him or this new reality of his, he's still going to that store where she's at for a reason, right? He could go to any store in New York, but I think if MJ's in that store, it is MJ, if she's in that store, there's a reason why he's there. He still desires to be with a person that he loves. And
Mhm.
that's an element of the character.
I think it's a great idea. I mean, the idea, it would be fascinating from a human perspective if you had no identity anymore. But that doesn't mean, as soon as you walk in and introduce yourself to somebody, the person you've introduced yourself to is going to be, oh, good to meet you, Peter Parker.
Yeah.
And that's the first person that would remember you.
Mhm.
And so if you have a complete blank slate and you can reinvent yourself however you wanted to reinvent yourself, how would Spider-Man, if Peter Parker had to figure out how to be Spider-Man, now Spider-Man has to figure out how to be Peter Parker. And that could be really interesting. If
Spider-Man has to definitely figure out how to be more independent now. It's an
Yeah.
independent version of who he used to be, because not only is he no longer depending on, technology, or depending on a Tony Stark, or depending on other heroes, but he's no longer depending on his friends. He's completely alone.
Yeah, and
Just
that's a
it.
really interesting story,
Yeah.
and that if they delve into that, and if there's some way that, Peter has two other Peter Parkers to consult with. And
Like, you can't even go back to like the local you can go back, but you can't go back to your local bodega expecting people to know who you are
Nope.
at that point, because
No.
everything is changed. It's fresh. You're the new kid on the block everywhere you go right now. Spider-Man is known. You're not.
Nope.
So it's the reverse of, identity.
I mean,
Whereas people know who Spider-Man is, but they don't know Peter Parker.
I mean, can
That's
you imagine
crazy.
if Tony Stark was still alive, Peter Parker couldn't even go to Tony Stark, and Tony Stark would know. Spider-Man could go introduce himself and unmask himself, but it was Tony Stark who tracked Peter down in the first place. So it'd be interesting.
Video
I mean,
footage.
I do
Everything's
think
changed.
that they could come up with a great story. They're in a good place. I just don't think. I was having a conversation. Let me ask you this, guys. I don't think, like right now, I don't think they can make an Avengers movie that people would want to see. I don't think it's because who would be in the Avengers? Who?
Yeah.
There's no characters of all the Eternals. Nobody cares. Shang-Chi, I like Shang-Chi. I like that movie a lot. Nobody cares. Thor, he's goofy now. Hulk, goofy. Doctor Strange was never in the Avengers. Peter Parker, no one knows who Peter Parker is. No one's going to follow Spider-Man as an Avenger. So how are they going to even make an Avengers movie?
I think that right now, bro, the sentiment, or in my mind, is like you have to get rid of the thought of a team up. Like, just get rid of the thought of an actual team up. A team up right now is kind of non-existent. Like, you're starting from scratch. You know, we have to see what's going to happen once we get past this whole multiversal idea. Because, like I said, they're trying to clean it up. The MCU right now is too much of a mess to really to have the
Total
thought
mess.
of an Avengers team up, because they haven't really established that. You know, again, they've been in complete disarray for the last few years with a lot of their films. Like, the films, again, there was no continuity. There was nothing to tie them together. You know, they're trying to do it, but I don't like, put it this way, they're trying to do it more so with like television series and animation, but from a movie aspect of it, it's just not working right now. It's not. So it's just like, well, we have to wait until they clean up this mess to say, okay, now can we establish a team? And we know that Captain America's been out there for a while. No other appearance. We're still waiting for his first film. You know what I mean? We know that Nick Fury's been out there out in space, but he hasn't come to visit. He hasn't been earthbound since, you know, Secret Invasion, and that was a mess. You know what I mean?
And he was like, he founded the Avengers, but he wasn't an Avenger himself.
Yeah, yeah.
And Captain Marvel, I mean, what's really interesting is, and here's the thing, it's one thing when a movie character like Wanda goes from the MCU and does her own show, you know, because she's already established Age of Ultron and onward.
Yeah.
But for Marvel's, I really like Miss Marvel. I like the characters on that show. I like Aman Vellani.
Yeah.
But to take a TV character and put them in the movies, it doesn't work because they don't have the gravitas. And while I thought she was well done in the Marvels, clearly the audiences didn't, and MCU fans, it just didn't work. And Monica Rambeau is my Captain Marvel, you know, but to bring her from a TV show into the movies and to expect those two characters to hold the screen with a character that, whether you like Brie Larson or not, Captain Marvel was a $1 billion grossing film.
Yeah.
You know, and they could have made their Empire Strikes Back or something with that, but they chose to, like, people who didn't watch the Marvel, if you don't have Disney Plus and you were an MCU fan, you wouldn't even know who those characters are. And so it didn't really work, and they diminished.
You can't depend on those IPs anymore, bro. I mean, you can't. I'm put it this way: you can't depend on, you know, people to actually go out and have, or, you know, establish or even be invested in Disney Plus programming. You can't have that expectation because, you know, a lot of people just don't watch it. You know what I mean? So to have that or use that as a vessel of continuity for people to say, okay, well, the material's out there, you got to follow it. A lot of people just don't watch Disney Plus, bro. It's just the way it is.
Yep.
So we shouldn't, in a sense, have that expectation at all. You know what I mean? Like I don't think we should. I think you kind of, you know, selling yourself short if you're trying. I mean, here's the thing, bro. Like, it's, you know, when we got WandaVision, it was, you know, one of the first, you know, if not the first, but one of the first shows on Disney Plus.
And it was really exciting.
And it was exciting because you knew that at that time it was a possibility. It was possibility. It was open possibility at that time. It was like, okay, this was great. Let's see where we go next. Like, where can we go next? And it's like between that and, you know, after that, I think we got Falcon and the Winter Soldier as an MCU project. I think that was next.
Yeah. It was.
That, of course, came with a lot of controversy because of the rewrites and restructure based on the pandemic and you know, just the content itself. So they had to kind of change that narrative. And we saw that because of that, even though I loved Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I quite enjoyed it. Even
I did
the concept of everything, I enjoyed it. It didn't work for, you know, pretty much the public or from a public or the public opinion itself, it didn't work as well as they thought it would have or should have. You know what I mean? But then we saw that things started getting messy. After that, everything started getting messy, and it was like, okay, well, we're losing it. They introduced this whole theory of the multiverse, and I don't think they were ready for it.
No,
They
it
weren't
wasn't.
ready
It
for
wasn't
it at
thought.
all.
It wasn't thought through. I mean, what was
It
really
wasn't thought through at all, bro.
what I thought was really interesting was the thing about WandaVision is it was playing on a relationship that comic book fans understood because the Vision Wanda story had been existing for decades before you ever did WandaVision. And when I first heard the title, I'm like, wow, they're going back and they're playing on the comic mythos, and they did the whole sitcom thing, which was really interesting.
It was
and her
amazing.
dealing
I loved
with
that.
wasn't it was so wild and out there that it made a promise that it never fulfilled, because Falcon and Winter Soldier became this sort of, dealing with these two guys in their lives, but it was much more grounded and traditional. There's terrorists and everything, but it was so, and I think all of the MCU shows have been disappointing from the perspective of they never leaned into like, if you didn't know anything about Wanda and the Vision in the comics, you could watch WandaVision and it was so weird. Like when they're living in this domestic bliss and like the Brady Bunch house and all that, and you're watching her deal with her trauma. It was so out there and Agatha Harkness and bizarre. And it took the MCU in this crazy new direction where it introduced the Darkhold and it introduced sorcery and it introduced all this stuff. And then it just went back to this traditional pablum. And like, I was really excited for She-Hulk. I thought, okay, you're going to embrace the breaking the fourth wall business, and at the same time examine the legal ramifications of what does it mean to be a superhero or what does it mean to be a metahuman in the MCU. And the show was gobbledygook. I mean, I love Tatiana Maslany, but every episode I'm like, what is this about? Like you
She-Hulk, that show, that entire show to me was a huge missed opportunity.
Total misfire.
It was definitely misfire, bro.
One thing that they should have done in She-Hulk that I think they should have done and they didn't was that, from what I understand,
Put you in it?
No, I mean that I totally would do.
Put you in it?
Yes, I would. I would do it. It actually was a little surprising that they didn't do this. And the thing that they did in the comics, from what I understand, is that they used real court cases of other superheroes as evidence in Wanda's arguments. And that kind of solidifies and kind of reinforces the notion that she deals with superhero cases, these special cases that she's hired for. So when every time she got a case, it felt like an ordinary case because they weren't using any precedent that was pertinent to superheroes and their issues.
And also it felt like she didn't know what she was doing.
Well, yeah,
like they never really focused in on Jennifer Walters as a lawyer in her, because she's a really, really incredible lawyer, and they never focused on that. All they focused on was what was going on in her life, her whole personal relationship status. That's all they focused on, and everybody else was handling court cases.
Yeah,
so you dropped the ball on that. It didn't make sense.
And that's the thing that I didn't understand. And I felt the same kind of was true of the Hawkeye series. I was watching Hawkeye, and I get it. I mean, you had Matt Fraction's storyline, and I'm like, but what's going on here? Like, it was so weird and disjointed. I mean, it felt like Hawkeye was wandering around New York for weeks and wasn't able to, like, he would just show up and get what he needed done in about an afternoon and take care of business and be gone. And it was such a bizarre, the tracksuit mafia and the mother and this, and I'm like, what is this storyline that's jumping all over the place? And it felt like it wasn't, I haven't liked any of the Marvel shows. I hated what they did to Moon Knight. And I was so excited about Moon Knight. And they, the whole idea of him having a split personality was something that came late in that character's life in terms of the comics. And then they never they did everything they could to make it not about Moon Knight. It was about a cult leader. Then you're dealing with, Khonshu, and then you're dealing with all these the Egyptian gods. And it's like, what what is this? What am I watching? And
Yeah, I see. The thing is, I enjoyed Moon Knight. I did not like the final episode at all. I didn't like the whole
Yes.
giant, you're taking them, turning them to like these overgrown kaijus. I didn't like it. It just didn't. That episode really kind of turned me off because I thought there was more opportunity to focus in on the character. Where they started, I was like, okay, cool, I can follow it. I like the whole mystery around trying to figure out which personality you're dealing with, where he came to this point. I get that. I get them going with that aspect of Mark Spector in his life after the fact, because we know the earlier iteration didn't deal with the multiple personalities. We know
Right.
that aspect of it, but they went with that because, again, it created a level of, in what they thought, a better way to introduce a character surrounded around mystery, and gain attention around a subject matter, which was, again, mental instability. They were going after that. People who are dealing with those things,
Sure.
they wanted to kind of target that because they know that a lot of people are dealing with individuals in their lives that might be suffering from these disassociative type of situations. But again, it's the miss. I think the opportunity is, it's like, I call this and I don't want to go deep into this, Rob, because I already know how you feel about this.
No.
But I call this the J.J. Abrams symptoms.
Right.
Whereas you can start something and it looks promising, but you don't know how to end it.
Yeah.
You never know how to end it. And I think that's what it is. You start it, you create the discussion where people are interested in. You create the interest, but then by the end of it, they're like, well, what the fuck did I just watch?
But
Like, what did I, where are we going with this? Like, what is it that you were trying to really accomplish? And I think that's what most of these, like, when I watched, Moon Knight, it was very promising. Hell, I got the figure, so I'm happy about that. But at the end of that show, it was like, okay, you didn't deal with every aspect of, and you only show us this Jake Lockley character at the end of the episode. And that was what? Now they're like, okay, we don't even know if we're going to get another Moon Knight or if we're going to get him in the cinematic universe. No one really knows this at this point. So again, with these characters that you introduce, it seems, what it seems like, Rob? Every character they produce or they release should have been Spotlight. Spotlight should have been developed a long time ago, to be quite honest, because it seems like every show was a standalone.
Right. Well, yes, and I'll tell you something. The thing about Moon Knight, for instance, when Moon Knight was originally created, Khonshu there was no Egyptian god in Moon Knight. And by doing that, this is what I can't stand. By doing that, by saying, okay, Khonshu is a real entity, and these Egyptian gods are roaming the earth now. What you've done is you've torn a hole in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and you've said, okay, if these gods are real, what happens when the Celestials come to Earth? Which they did. Is Arishem the judge aware of Khonshu? Does Khonshu know that Werewolf by Night exists? Are they connected to the Darkhold?
Yeah.
And there's all these things that these shows would bring up, and that was the same thing was true of the Eternals with the Celestials. They ask all these questions, and then they never follow up. So if you're
Never follow through with it, yeah.
The first 23 movies of the Infinity Saga, you get it. They it's all of a piece, and you understand where everything is. You get, okay, there's the cosmic entities are there. There's Celestials because the Guardians of the Galaxy have been to nowhere, and that's a celestial head. But it's one thing to know that the Celestials are there, and you can see Thanos. But when one comes to Earth, and one comes out of Earth,
yeah,
then suddenly all of humanity is aware. And these Egyptian gods were eating the souls of people on the streets of Cairo. Well, nobody said anything about that.
Yeah.
And it's like once that goes on, you've broken the reality of the MCU that you painstakingly set up over all those movies. And those TV shows just did all that. And they did it, I'm sorry, but they did it in WandaVision when they brought Evan Peters in as Quicksilver.
Yeah.
And they're playing like, this is Ralph Boner or whatever. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, why did you do that? Because what you're doing to the audience is the audience knows exactly who this character is.
You know who he is. We know we saw him last.
And
And then you're basically saying that was all a fallacy at that point. That's the aspect that I didn't understand, because you can't actually look at us, the viewer, and expect us to say, okay, we are understanding of this, because you're calling us stupid in that aspect. It's like, you
Right.
know what? No, we know where this character comes from. We know this is the Quicksilver of the Fox universe. We know that. We know this. We know that the Quicksilver in this known universe in the MCU was killed. So then you're bringing this individual in, and it's like, wait a minute, really? You know what I mean? Like, call him Quicksilver. That's who it is.
Right.
It's Quicksilver because that's who Wanda knows. That's who she knows. And the thing is, you don't address, bro, that was traumatic to her. That was traumatic to her in her life. It was someone that she lost. To not address that aspect, to say, okay, this is what changed. It was because of you're the one who created these personas. Agatha was in on it and stuff like that. But at the end of it, the only thing that they somewhat address is her relationship with Vision and her children. It's not her thinking, well, what happened to my brother? What really happened to my brother? Like, what was done? They didn't. There were so many things, even though, and I'm saying that as someone who quite enjoyed WandaVision. I love it. I watched it.
I did too, but
I loved it. But it was not without its faults.
No,
it's plot hole. It was just, it wasn't.
And when everyone's trying to figure out what's going on, remember, it was Mephisto going to show up. What I thought that Agatha Harkness had reached out to get this image of Quicksilver to fuck with Wanda, and actually picked up the Quicksilver from the wrong universe, and brought him in, and it would have kicked off the whole multiverse storyline. Like, she used the Darkhold or whatever, because then they go right into Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, which is a sequel to WandaVision. And then we see Charles Xavier, played by Patrick Stewart, and the same. Wouldn't Evan Peters, like, you've now established the Fox universe, and I'm like, okay, that was to me, that was where it all started to fall apart. It was Quicksilver and WandaVision, and then you didn't deal with the ramifications of it, and then all of it just unraveled. And that's when I knew that they haven't thought this through.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But by the way, there's more super chats that I want to grab, because people are saying some really fascinating things about AI here. Scott Bartholomew said that AI is being used to steer social opinion. Well, yeah, the internet's been doing that for a long time, but it's just going to get, now we're not going to know what's real. And he says that I would argue the AI issue began with video games. Well, I don't know, not to the extent of we now have deep fakes. I mean, the technology is being used there, but I don't know, man. And General Grievous says, unfortunately, the AI problem is too late to solve on a legislation level, like Wile E. Coyote's parachute opening after he hits the ground. It reminds me of the TNG episode where Geordi programmed a holographic Dr. Leah Brahms to date him, and the real one found out. Yeah, I mean, that's a really good point. But the thing is, I don't think it's too late to legislate, because I think what we have to do is change people's opinions. We're able to change. Look, eventually, even though it never truly went away, we did get rid of slavery in the United States. We did get rid of Jim Crow laws. We did allow for same-sex marriage in this country. We made sweeping personal changes for the betterment of people's lives. I think that we need to look at this AI victimization of human beings in the same way. The same way that we had laws, women didn't have the right to vote. Black Americans didn't have the right to vote.
Yeah.
We need to change our civilization on that level. It has to be, you have to couch it like the victimization, call it the Taylor Swift law. You'll get a lot of people behind it.
Oh, yeah.
The victimization of Taylor Swift she's standing, it's going to happen to all women. Do you want it to happen to your mom, to your sister, to your daughter, to your aunts? That's what's happening. The victimization of women through AI is something that we need to combat immediately.
What I'm afraid of too, though, and I agree 100% with what you just said. What I'm afraid of too, though, is that there's going to be people who are like, I need my AI. Like, it is a reality for so many people who use it day in and day out. That's their life now. They depend on AI to do their work, to function.
Well, I
and
think
finish
AI,
the project.
no, you can use it, but it's just like, using cameras. You can take pictures at kids' parties, but when you and you're taking pictures at weddings, but you don't take inappropriate photos of people. You don't get rid of the cameras, you don't get rid of the tools, but when they're the potential for misuse, you can come down hard on that.
Mm-hmm. And I still think that the people who are using it will not want any tampering with AI at all. That's what I
Well,
think.
the hard part about it is if you think
Back
about Facebook was a form of artificial intelligence and people depend on that. Instagram was a form of artificial intelligence and that's become dependent. Hell, YouTube is almost a form of artificial intelligence, to be quite honest, especially with all the algorithms and everything that we actually see. It gears off of what you're most not desire, but mostly what your search tool always makes suggestions on things that you want. That's the thing, we come so reliant on it. So then we've actually opened the door for those levels of improvement and elevation, innovation. So now we have AI here that's being misused. It's like, yo, if you want to get, not to say that we need to get rid of it, but there has to be a level of control. The problem is it's hard to control something that you've already allowed and given privileges to advance in, and now it's just, you can take anything and it doesn't matter what it is. Hell, you can make somebody who doesn't know how to make music at all and make them popular through AI.
I know you
Straight up.
absolutely
It's
you
crazy.
absolutely can. It's incredible. But I think we have to couch it. It's not an AI issue. It's a respect for humanity issue. You got to turn it around and say, look, we're not taking your AI tools away from you, but we're not allowing you to use AI to victimize the human individual.
Yeah.
To
Rob,
hurt people.
Did you see that video? I saw it like maybe 3 weeks ago, I believe, that there is a droid. They've created an android, a sparring partner, a sparring boxing android. And that thing is that, bro, it was like you're boxing Floyd Mayweather. That's how swift this thing was. Can you imagine if something like that gets loose?
People were telling me that was actually visual effects. But I was looking at it, I'm like, that looked like it was a real. They were doing a boxing demonstration.
It looks so real, bro. It looks so real. If that was, then they did a bang up job of making me believe, because that shit looks so. But I was looking at that
going, and now, like you said, if that gets loose, I mean, and here's the thing: there's technology that we're not even, people aren't even aware of, like swarm technology, for instance, microscopic drones. Like literally microscopic drones that they can send in en masse, like thousands of microscopic drones.
Yeah.
They fly in your ear canals, they fly up your nose, right into your brain, a little charge. You could take out everyone on a battlefield. The kind of technology that is being developed, that by the way already exists, is so insane and so dangerous. And the idea, that's why we don't even know the limitations about what's been happening, but that's why we really need to simmer down, Beavis. Like the human race needs to simmer down, because we're ratcheting up like we're frogs in a boiling pot of water, and it's rough.
Rob, I think we're there's an imposter right now, AI, bro, because I don't think is real. Her hair is not billowing. I don't think that's her, bro. I was watching this entire show since I've been on. I'm like, wait a minute, it hasn't billowed once. Maybe this is not her. I don't think this is real.
It's me.
No, I don't think it is. I really don't think you're real. I think you're an imposter. I think AI is infiltrated this show.
I
Well,
hope not.
you know what? Here's a way to find out. Hunter Becknell asks a question. I want to ask you guys this too, because I haven't really
Yeah.
talked to anybody about this. Have you
Yeah.
guys watched True Detective Night Country?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. Yes, I did. I've watched both episodes. I can't wait for Sunday. Hell yeah.
I love it.
Hell yeah.
It's
And how they're tying it in with season 1. I love this show. I love this show. And yo, Jodie Foster is an asshole, and I love it. I love it.
I love the show. It was
love it.
crazy, like the
It is
thing,
insane.
the what had happened to those scientists.
Yes,
You know, like that
yes,
was so
bro.
fucking.
Yes, you can, and it's and the thing is, there's so many references to the thing, bro. Like when you watch
There's
it,
even a videotape. They had the videotape of the thing
Yup.
that I owned, the VHS tape
yeah,
of
bro.
the thing in there. I was like,
I love it. I love it, bro. Like these first 2 seasons, because there's so, and then you got to watch it. Like I've watched both episodes back to back to just try to find different key points, things that I'm like, well, this certain things were referenced in, and we're talking about the first season of True Detective that it's linked to. I'm not talking about the second season, but the first season, and where they're kind of linking these things in. So there is definite opportunity to bring other characters or an individual character into this season if they would. They can do it if they wanted to, but as it stands itself, I think the entire cast is killing it. Like I think they are killing it right now. I love this show, bro. I love it.
now let me ask you this: there was a lot of controversy. I had some people in my feed when I said I thought it was great. People got really angry. And they said, well, it's using the Inuit people, but they shot it in Iceland. They didn't really shoot it in Alaska. And it's exploitive. And I was just like, first of all, they're shining a light. Yeah. And they're like, this wasn't exactly how these places in Alaska are.
What?
And I'm just like, okay, everything in movies is fake. Everything. There's nothing real. When you watch a movie, nothing is real. The sets were built, or even if they shoot on location, it's a camera and there's actors walking in front of the camera. Nothing is real.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, and I was making this this point on Robservations. I said, look, in 1993, when Philadelphia came out, and Tom Hanks played a gay lawyer dying of AIDS, and Denzel was defending him. That movie did more to bring attention to the plight of people afflicted with that horrible disease.
Yeah.
And Bruce Springsteen's song "Philadelphia" was a hit. Denzel became all of us, because when you see the scene when he first meets, he plays it so well. He's terrified of Tom Hanks. He doesn't understand the disease, so he becomes us.
Yeah.
And I'm like, nowadays, you'd have a bunch of fucking Twitter activists going, well, Tom Hanks cannot play this character because, one, he's not gay, and he's not dying of AIDS.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, that movie did more to generate sympathy in the general public.
Awareness as well. A lot of awareness on everything.
And people were, and I would say that movie probably did more than anything. Because when America's sweetheart Tom Hanks plays a gay man dying of AIDS, he's immediately sympathetic, and people were on his side. So nowadays, like Scarlett Johansson was going to play a trans man, and in a story about a real character that existed, and maybe if she was allowed to play that role, the same thing could have happened. But oh no, she was chased out of the role by people who, like, when you're talking about reality in movies, that person can't play such and such. That's nothing is real in a movie. No. And this weird idea that has developed that this person I understand you want to give more work to people who are marginalized, and maybe there's not enough of them acting in Hollywood. But there's also an economic reality that Tom Hanks and Denzel Washington got Philadelphia made.
Yeah.
If you didn't have actors of their caliber in the movie, nobody would have made it.
Yeah.
They wouldn't have spent the money on it. Bruce Springsteen wouldn't have written a song about it. And it certainly wouldn't have got him an Oscar at the Academy Awards.
Yeah.
And Dallas Buyers Club, Jared Leto and Matthew McConaughey, same kind of thing. And this weird idea that you want actors that have no value economically, not as people, but economically, movies are a product. And it's bizarre. So when people are coming at me going, well, True Detective, they're shot it in Iceland. They didn't really shoot it in Alaska. I'm like, okay, they didn't shoot The Martian on Mars either. I mean, it's such a bizarre, strange, Tunisia is not Tatooine.
No.
I mean, it's such a weird thing. Now, I would go.
But it has to be in the direct location. It has to be shot. That's just like when people watch, I forget the name of the show on ABC, the comedy. It's about the school in Philadelphia.
Abbott Elementary.
Abbott Elementary, which is
a great show.
It is a phenomenal show. I just got the episode I just got done watching today, because I go back and watch the seasons, but the episode I just got done watching today, was it the Christmas episode? Did you remember that episode? Yep. Like the Christmas. So when you're watching that episode and people find out, or when people do the research and find out that wasn't actually shot in Philadelphia, it was shot in LA, then of course people are going to be like, well, why couldn't you have shot in Philadelphia? I mean, it doesn't really matter. There's so many different shows that weren't shot on locations at the actual. It's just the way it is, But if you're giving me an authentic, you're giving me a depiction of the life, and I can say, well, this does happen in Philadelphia. I can imagine that happening. There's certain episodes they won't tell you, but there's certain episodes of NCIS. Or what is it? On what is it? That weren't shot in New York City. There were certain episodes that weren't, but they won't tell you that.
CSI Miami wasn't shot in Miami.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't shot in Miami, bro. And that's what I'm saying. Like, it doesn't matter as long as the story's good. As long as you are giving me an authentic depiction of the lifestyle, I'm good with that. And I think this show, regardless of where it's shot, I don't care. What I'm seeing so far right now is incredible. It is incredible storytelling.
And not only that, but
I'm just loving it, bro.
It's delving into the Inuit people, and people. How many Google searches have there been? How many people now want to get those 3 tattoos on their chins?
Yeah, bro.
And you're gonna see all that crazy, and it's such a weird thing that we live in this time where activists want everybody to actually be like, Casablanca, the movie Casablanca. You know where it was shot?
Yeah.
In Burbank, California, on the Warner Brothers lot.
Right.
I mean, it's just like they
right.
didn't shoot it in Casablanca. I'll tell you that. I mean,
Black Panther wasn't shot in Wakanda in Africa. It was shot in Atlanta. Atlanta. It was shot in Atlanta, Georgia. That's where it was shot.
And you know what's funny to me too is that how come people make allowances for that? Like, they didn't shoot Aquaman in Atlantis, but yet then they'll get mad when they shoot something in a different country that's doubling for something else. But it's weird to me. It's just, the whole thing is bizarre. But yes, so the question was, Hunter asked if we liked the show.
Love the show.
The answer is
love
yes.
The show.
I love the show.
Hunter, did you see it yet?
No, I haven't.
Oh my God, you gotta watch it.
It's you'll want to binge it anyway. I wish you could watch all the episodes. Hunter Becknell also asked, now this is a tough one. This is a Star Trek Deep Space Nine one. If Sisko's mom was a wormhole alien, then why didn't the other wormhole aliens know about him in Emissary? And why did they act as if it was the first time they'd interacted with a non-corporeal being? That's actually a really good question. Did we establish that Sisko's mom was a wormhole alien?
I don't know. I have no idea.
I don't know if that, but even if she was,
how you asked that question just now,
I don't think that the non-corporeal. I gotta ask.
Popcorn bucket, right? I don't know.
I'm gonna find out, because even me as
I've never heard of that before, Robert. I have no idea if his mom is a wormhole alien.
There's been some discussion recently about how involved the prophets were in ensuring that Benjamin Sisko they needed was born. I thought about this several years ago after what is probably far too many viewings of Deep Space Nine. The timeline that we observe in Deep Space Nine is a final coalesced timeline that results from the involvement of the prophets and their adversaries, the Pa-wraiths. Initially, Joseph and Sarah Sisko got together on their own, created Ben, and shortly after Sarah died somehow, Joseph remarried and Ben knew his stepmother as his only... You know what? I'm reading this. This is a good theory, but I'll tell you something. So it has not been established that Joseph Sisko and Sarah were non-corporeal aliens. Although I do think it's an interesting idea. But I would say this: the wormhole aliens don't really pay much attention to corporeal existence at all. So, I think that when they're meeting Ben Sisko, it's not just that he's corporeal, he's a unique individual. And probably that's what they were responding to. Coach sipping Jamba Juice out of a straw says, we live in a masturbate society and it's a disgrace. Well, I mean, I would hope that masturbation isn't totally disgraceful. Otherwise, I'm in real trouble. But and have been for quite some time. But I see what your point is. I understand your point. Yeah, we should step it up. Riley Rayburn says, I'm directing my first feature in July. Woo, congratulations.
Hey.
It's called Kevin's Last Halloween, starring Freddy Krueger in a coming-of-age dramedy. It's Home Alone times Nightmare on Elm Street. So is Robert Englund going to be in your movie? That's very cool. Congratulations.
Nice, man.
Riley, well done. Nice putting the money together.
Incredible.
Scott Bartholomew says that Mirror Mirror, my favorite original series episode, is the original multiverse story. It's definitely one of them. But Jerome Bixby, he was a great writer. But they dealt with those stories before in science fiction. But in terms of TV, probably. Thomas Logan says, Pete is finally Spider-Man. Spider-Man 4 should skew older. I agree.
Yeah.
I think it should.
Yeah, and Rob, let me ask you a question. Have you read the latest episode of the latest Ultimates comics right now?
No.
Spider-Man, bro.
I have all the Ultimates. I haven't read the latest Ultimates. I'll tell you something. I haven't until I can get it. You know what I just ordered, but it hasn't shown up yet? What? I ordered AXE, the Avengers, X-Men, Eternals.
Have you read the story yet?
No. I've been dying to read it because I've been working my way through. I can't wait. I'm so excited because I love the Krakoan era of X-Men.
Yeah. And you got to read that. I would say read that before, because like I said, they just released the first version of the Resurrection of Magneto. So, again, you have to read that first before you get to this to really understand where this is going. I would read it first before you read that book. So,
oh, really? Well,
yeah.
Well, because I've been reading the Krakoan era of X-Men.
Yeah. So yeah, but see, the thing is, it's like now with the Krakoan era, because it's coming to an end. So I would read that first before you get to.
But wouldn't that take place after AXE?
It does take place after, but there's something that happens in it that explains the connection to Magneto right now.
Okay.
So you might want to read that first. And then, I mean, if you're already reading the Krakoan era right now and Fall of X, storyline, or Fall of X.
I've been reading. But I haven't. You know what? I started reading Fall of X because I read Hellfire Gala 2023, and then I went and bought a bunch of comics. Yeah, and was catching up, and then I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna wait for the hardcovers to come out because I don't. Yeah, it's annoying, and I know that
it's a lot to digest at that point, bro. But I'm telling you, it's definitely a good read. It is.
Yeah, I can't wait. It's a big. I ordered that. I ordered ROM. And I ordered the ROM Omnibus, ROM Space Knight. And then I ordered Howard Chaykin's Times Squared as an omnibus is coming out. So I don't know if they're just waiting to send those all to me at once. Cheap graphic novels. Yeah. Cheap graphic novels. That's an actual company. I love cheap graphic novels. They're great. wow, a bunch of people wrote in about. So Peter's finally Spider. Scott Bartholomew said, Star Trek: The Original Series laid the foundation for all modern sci-fi and TV and film. Well, it wasn't just. I would say that TOS did a lot of that, but remember, at the same time, you had Outer Limits before that. You had Twilight Zone before that, and then you had the Irwin Allen shows like Time Tunnel and Land of the Giants, and then you had the Jerry Anderson shows, which we didn't get, and Doctor Who. But then you had UFO and Space 1999 and the Thunderbirds and Captain Scarlet. So I think it all kind of informed, and then Space 1999, and then Star Wars came out. So all of it, I think, informed various things. Wraith X7 says the MCU is making the same mistakes as the comics. I don't, maybe, I mean, I think that, I don't know what, you know what, I'm so tuned out of superhero comics. The last thing is I bought the Dark Crisis comics from DC, which I actually kind of enjoyed. I didn't hate it. I kind of enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And then, I've been buying the X-Men, the Krakoan era hardcovers. But for the most part, most DC and Marvel superhero comics, I kind of, unless there's a storyline I'm really interested in, like the AXE storyline, I'll get it. But what do you think?
Yeah.
What do you guys think of? Because Lael, what do you think of the state of Marvel and DC now?
Cinematically or just the comics?
No, the
in general?
comics.
Well, the thing is, I think you got to pick and choose. But I think that, like, lately, bro, there have been some very interesting stories. Like even the latest edition of the Hulk. The latest Daredevil issues have been pretty good. Everything that's happened, especially in the Ultimate Universe, the Ultimate Spider-Man, oh my God.
But didn't they end the Ultimate Spider-Man? Did it end?
No,
It's always
because
gone on?
No, because you got to keep in mind that they've reached. So here's the thing, bro. So now the evil version of Mr. Fantastic has created a world where there is the Maker. So, the Maker is basically the evil version of, Stephen, Reed Richards. You know what I mean? So the Maker basically creates a world where there are no heroes. So that's what he's basically done. Like where some of the superheroes have been like either like Tony Stark himself has been framed or he's dead. This version of Peter that we're seeing is the Peter who never became Spider-Man. And in this particular book, he, Uncle Ben works for the Daily Bugle. So does Peter. You know what I mean? So they work for the Daily Bugle right now. And at the end of this book, it's a phenomenal spin on the character because right now him and Mary Jane, they have kids. Like they basically they have a relationship. They're married. They have kids. But what happens is Peter never becomes Spider-Man for a reason, and Tony is the one who delivers the message and tells him what he needs. Once you read it is fucking phenomenal. Like literally, it is one of the most praised books right now. So once you read it, you'll be like, oh shit, this is where they're going.
Well, when it comes out in omnibus form, I'll get it.
Bro, it's phenomenal. So they're like, again, storytelling right now is changing, but I think you got to be very selective. I think it's going in a direction where it's more innovative right now. Like the innovation of these characters, they're taking it into a totally different direction. So I think there are some good signs there. I mean, DC is catching up, of course. Like again, you just have to, bro. You haven't even read Superman versus Godzilla yet, have you?
No.
You laugh, but it's a good ass book.
All right. By the way, I wanted to point out that Hunter Becknell's question about the wormhole aliens, he did send in a $20 super chat. Yeah. But see now, Hunter, I'm going to go find out. But I don't think it was ever canonical in Deep Space Nine that the wormhole aliens knew his mom, or his mom was a wormhole alien, or was that in a book, or I don't know.
I never heard of it either, so I don't know.
So let's see. Tom Jr. Jackson says, what? Movies aren't real? Are you telling me that the people in Life of Brian weren't really crucified? No. Hi, RM and Lael. Always look on the bright side of life, Tom. Wind Goddess. Wind Goddess has been a member for 39 months. Wind Goddess, please come to our member call tomorrow. Scott Bartholomew says, watch The Crow just for the soundtrack. It's a great soundtrack. By the way, The Crow turns 30 years old this year.
Wow.
30 years old. The Terminator turns 40. Ghostbusters turns 40. Scott Bartholomew says, Lael, just a shout out to you tonight.
Shout out my brother.
So there you go. Scott was in the last member chat. Hope we see him tomorrow. And the Crow has a great soundtrack. It's crazy to me that The Crow is 30 years old.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it really is. If you think
so,
about
what do
that.
you? So, do you want? So, let me ask you a question, Rob. Do you want a remake? Do you want
Oh,
them to
look who updated his software.
Yeah, yeah.
I didn't see that.
You know, bro. You already know that.
You
know.
got it. Okay.
I got that, bro. I got, what is it? The you do the peace sign. You get the balloons. Hold up, the peace sign, and it actually gives you, I think, the balloons.
Yes,
so you
it
get
does.
that. You know, this, you get that. See, and it's only because I'm basically using this camera because my camera stopped working. So it didn't stop, but that cam link stopped working. So I'm using the computer. So yeah.
your cam links. That's not good.
Yeah, it sucks.
I'm sorry.
I got to retool it. It'll work once I just kind of put things back in perspective. It'll work.
It'll come back.
Although it's not real.
Let's see what else. What else do we want to talk about? I think we're all caught up on that. Do I need cam links for my face cams, my Elgato face cams?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't.
Well, I don't know. I don't know, to be quite honest. I'm just using it basically from my Canon. So I don't know why it's not working. It's just acting dumb. It just doesn't want to work.
Well,
I tried to see if I can fix it. It didn't work. It just
a silly goose wants to know when there's going to be a Robservatory tour. You know what? I can't. Here's the thing. I need to do a little bit more work, but I need to get these some more IKEA bookshelves. I need to do what I want to do before I can, because I want to move some stuff around. And there's a side room here that Elizabeth wants to turn into a ceramic studio.
Oh, wow.
Which I'm reluctant to let her do that. I've left all my stuff in there.
I thought you had your storage in there.
No, I mean, I've got hot toys in there. I got unbuilt model kits in there. I got all kinds of stuff in there, and she wants to turn it into a ceramic studio. And I'm like, it's because this is my only place, you know. But I would do ceramics. I like ceramics. I'd make she wants to build a kiln. I'm like, okay. That would be fun. Albert Vasquez asks a good question. Will we see a James Gunn Superman presentation at San Diego Comic-Con this year?
Yeah.
I don't know if they'll be shooting anything to show us, but maybe they might introduce the entire cast.
That's what they'll probably do. I mean, I know they're they've gotten so far who they've wanted. I know they're still working on like the Supergirl casting, I guess, right now.
Yeah.
So that's going to be interesting. Rob, when do you think they're going to make an announcement about the Fantastic Four, bro?
Dude, I read a story today that said they're rewriting it again.
Really?
They're rewriting the I do have, how can I say this? From a very, very, very highly placed source, I heard a really interesting approach. Like, I think they really don't know what to do with the Fantastic Four. Mm-hmm. And I think in because of the rest of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but I was told something. I can't say, I don't mean to be like that guy. I just can't say what it is, because if I were to say it, people would know who I heard it from.
Okay.
They would know exactly who I heard it from. But it was something that was so exciting and so kind of bonkers, but I'm like, it would fit right in. If they were, I don't even know. It would require a lot of work, and I don't know how they would do it. But the Fantastic Four, there's many different ways that they could go. Like, I like the idea that somebody mentioned that, what if the Fantastic Four were from the 60s, and they were created and they disappeared. Reed Richards and his ilk disappeared, and they came back from the negative zone or wherever the hell they were today. So they had this sort of retro feel to them, the retro family. I mean, that could be something really interesting.
It'd be interesting if they did that, which would tie into the reference that Stephen Strange made in the Multiverse of Madness. So that would be an interesting approach if it's done well. As long as it's done well, and that's the thing is, like, if it's being rewritten, bro, like, if they're rewriting it with the purpose of making it better, and if it's going to be good, then I get it. But I guess it's a wait and see situation, bro. Like, all these movies, I mean, Blade, I'm starting to just think that that's never going to happen, bro.
Well,
I'm starting to feel like it's not going to happen.
Well, I think the problem that the MCU has now is there's all these dead ends, because if you make a Blade movie, then you have to admit vampires exist. And if you admit vampires exist, where have they been? And like, even with Agatha Harkness, they're doing the whole thing. We did see Werewolf by Night, which I really liked, but Werewolf by Night is like, they've had all of these things happen in the MCU. Where is the supernatural stand? And like, I've asked, if there's vampires in the world that Blade is fighting, because Blade has to have enough vampires that they're fighting them. He's a daywalker. Did vampires get snapped? We've talked about before, like, when Thanos snapped everybody away, was the supernatural affected by Thanos' snap? Not that it really matters, but I think that they don't know the answer to these questions. And when you actually sit down and you have to make a decision, you have to be like, okay, if you're going to bring the supernatural in the way it exists in the MCU, you already saw the Blade in Eternals, the Black Knight, the cursed blade, whatever, that has its basis in symbiotes and all that crap. I mean, are you going to go down that direction?
Yeah.
And if you are, if there are vampires in the world, we know that there's giant Egyptian gods fighting each other in the sands of Egypt. I mean, you're going to go that direction. It's a weird place.
I mean, they could have, again, if they do something like that, then they'll probably approach it in the standpoint that they have been here, but we just haven't been focused on it.
Right. And the same,
like, we haven't been focused on them, and that, again, what we're seeing is everything from Blade's perspective, because that's the world that he's vested in. He's more grounded. So that's where they would probably have that. And then eventually that or his character would tie into the MCU a certain way. Like, they'll say, okay, if these threats have been here, and then we know that there is a mutant, who is a vampire as well. So that's a good way to basically tie that into Blade. I mean, into the X-Men as well. So it's different ways that you can do it, but I hope that they do it in a way that makes sense to the character and Blade's origin and who he is as a character. I want the primary focus on him. Mind you, my present toys Blade will be here sometime this week. I want the focus to be on him, in really making sure that character is established for Marvel first. You know what I mean? Making sure. I mean, come on, bro. We've been wanting that. You've announced that, like, what? It's been 5 years now since they've announced it.
Yeah.
Has it been almost 5 years?
And is Mahershala Ali?
Mahershala Ali is tied into it, but it's like, yo, he's almost 50. You know what I mean? He's getting up there as well. So there's only going to be so much that he can do at that time. Well, I mean, he's still in great shape. I'm not saying that he's not, but what I'm saying is, it's like, yo, come on, like, let's get this started. Why don't you? And we haven't. Again, it's been quiet on the front so far. All we know is that there were going to be rewrites, but there hasn't been anything else, in which, again, we always go back to no news is good news. If we're not hearing too much about it, it just means it's still probably still going. We just don't need to hear about it right now until they have something positive to say. So,
Yeah, no, but and for me, again, I think that they spent a long time putting the Infinity Saga together,
Hmm.
but I think by whether they lost their story group or not, I think they got real problems with the Fantastic Four, with the X-Men, with
Yeah.
vampires, and they don't know. Like, if they just go, the reason we don't know about vampires right now, it's like in the first Blade movie. There's a whole secret society that stays in the shadows.
Hmm.
There, and we don't like. I don't know. Look, you live in Pennsylvania. Like, I don't know what happens with the Pennsylvania Police Department every day, or the Pittsburgh Police Department. I have no idea what's going on in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
And if you're ensconced in Pittsburgh and you have there's an organized crime element in the Three Rivers or whatever, I would never know anything about it living in Los Angeles, unless it broke nationally or something. So it makes perfect sense to me that we could find out that there's Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters exists. It's been there the whole time. It's just the X-Men have not played on the world. Like, people are like, well, where were they during the Battle of New York? The Battle of New York lasted for like an hour. A portal opened, and the Avengers were dealing with it. Aliens streamed through, and then it was done. The X-Men are not. They're probably not in a position to do anything about New York. What are they going to do? Come out and announce themselves?
You know what? Honestly, bro, to be quite honest, the perfect way to introduce a Blade is more with a ground level, street level type of characters, such as even Daredevil. Such as
I agree.
As Spider-Man, Peter Parker himself. You know what I mean? Have it to whereas at the end of a movie or one of the post-credit scenes of a show or a film is that, we have Peter Parker, out there on a rooftop or something like that, or he runs into a character who he has a conversation with, and then all of a sudden that character, he discovers that character is a vampire who's on this, you know what I mean, or trying to kill or whatever. Have Peter with like, wait a minute, you know what I mean, and before he actually gets attacked by this vampire, Blade comes in and completely wipes the floor with this vampire, kills it. Peter is like, wait a minute, so they do exist, and then have him look at Peter and say, like, there's a world that you don't know. You know what I mean? Like, there's a world that exists that you don't know about, but let me educate you. I mean, we saw signs of that with, which I don't necessarily know why they introduced Blade at the end of the Eternals, but I guess they had somewhere to go with it. I mean, of course, there was a tie-in, but the thing is, you use a character like that with more street level profound characters, because that's where stuff like this is happening. Like you said before, Werewolf by Night was an opportunity for us to be more grounded in this particular world. You know what I mean? Release a Blade film around Halloween. You know what I mean? Do that. You know what I mean? So it's more grounded with that particular group of individuals, where you have like a Luke Cage, even Midnight Suns, bro. Give us the Midnight Suns. I mean, you can set up the Midnight Suns later on, but at least you're establishing these more ground level characters, these street level characters that have associations based off of what's going on in that city or in certain cities. And Blade is just an extension to it. Look, vampires exist for a long time. You've just turned a blind eye on it because, again, they've lived under this sacred code. They have it's a sacred cult in these cities. You just don't know what's going on. You're wondering why there's disappearance of individuals, and it's happening, and no one knows about it. And I do. It's because I've been dealing with this for years.
Yeah.
Let me show you my world. It's the perfect way to kind of introduce this character.
And they can show that. The vampires are mostly ensconced in old Europe or whatever. There's plenty of places to hide in plain sight, and they have to say that. I think that it's weird to me because I find the MCU fascinating from a storytelling standpoint, in the sense that it was chugging along so well, and then I feel like it just stopped and they forgot what they were doing. Like, they had this plan, and to me, the first question that people should ask is all like, look, in Shang-Chi, you suddenly find yourself in this mystical world, that Wenwu's a part of, and the Ten Rings, and you're in fantasy land with a dragon behind the door and all that. I'll buy into that. China's an ancient land. Sure, that shit like that could go down thousands of years. It's been here for a while. I'll buy it.
Why not? I'll buy it.
But they didn't do a good job of then showing us the ramifications after that. The Marvel Cinematic Universe movies, one used to lead into another. And now we've been watching these things that are all dead ends. They've never picked up any threads from anything and then moved them forward, other than a little bit of WandaVision in Multiverse of Madness, and then Marvel's took WandaVision and Miss Marvel forward, but they didn't do enough. There wasn't enough, like Miss Marvel, even Miss Marvel within the show, they give you these villains that were trying to bring forth another alternate dimension on top of the one we already have. And they were like defeated and we never hear about them again. And who are they?
Yeah.
For what reason?
You know what I want to see? And I would want to see them introduce a film. You know, if they give us Blade, I would want to see Blade in the streets of New York City. And he goes to like this secret section in Soho where he runs into like this brothel ran by a character named Mr. Steal Your Girl, and it's Robert Meyer Burnett, who's a vampire. It would be crazy.
Is that my vampire name?
It would be crazy.
I wouldn't steal anyone's girls.
Yes, you would.
No, that's not me. I would just borrow them. I'd give them back.
Yeah.
Because, you know.
Wow.
But I like them. I would frequent RM's brothel, though. I think she'd be a great madam.
Yeah, he would. That would be dope.
It would be a good place to go.
That would be dope. Blaze shows up. He looks up. He sees like a really a silhouette of a figure with hair billowing that says "You may enter."
Yeah, you made a vampire. I want a vampire brothel.
Yeah, that'd be
I would go to a vampire brothel and let hot vampire chicks feed on me, as long as I don't kill me. But they could feed on me. I would be down with that.
What if they want to feed on you in a place where you're not accustomed to being bitten?
Oh, it doesn't matter where they want to bite me, because I'm sure wherever they would bring the pleasure. But remember, I'd be paying for it'd be a vampire brothel, so I'm going there specifically to be bitten and feel that connection with a vampira, you know. Why not?
I would want to see Blade go up against Jim Carrey's character from Once Bitten. That would be incredible, bro.
The comedic version.
I love that movie. The comedic version.
That's so funny. You don't hear that movie brought up much. By the way,
man,
Major Chai Chai. This is Major Chai Chai's first super chat on this channel. This is a good point. Says, I'm going to see Godzilla Minus One minus color
Black
this
and white.
weekend.
Yes.
And The Wizard of Oz in the theater this weekend.
Wow.
It's going to be a good weekend. Okay, but you have to go see them in that order. You have to go see Godzilla Minus One minus color. So you go from black and white to black and white, and then you get to see, because you can't see The Wizard of Oz first and go from black and white to color.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then back to black and white. You gotta live in a black and white world. So when Dorothy does land in Oz and you get color back, it'll be striking.
Yeah, it'd be incredible.
By the way, for those of you who don't know, Godzilla Minus One minus color, the black and white version, they didn't just make it black and white. They retimed the whole thing. Godzilla minus, if you haven't seen it in the theater, you got to go see it in the theater.
Bro.
So Godzilla Minus One minus color.
Bro, that movie deserves all the accolades that it's been getting. Like, it is such a phenomenal film.
I agree.
Beautifully written. You know, that focuses on like the way they've tied in humanity with the aspect of this, you know, this cult classic creature. You know, the way they did this film, that director killed it, bro. The emotional beats at the end, everything was so phenomenal. Like, that movie, definitely, if you haven't seen it, anybody out in the chat, please, I beg you to go see it, because it deserves all the awards, the accolades, everything it's getting. It's
Did
so
you
phenomenal.
see the director who also made the Space Battleship Yamato live action movie and made a movie called Returner that's really cool? Did you see that he was at ILM last week visiting?
Yeah.
Was the film
I
nominated?
did see that. They did. What'd you say?
Was the film nominated for special effects?
It was nominated
It was.
for special effects. What else was it nominated for?
I'm not sure, but I would love to see that movie win for best visual effects.
Yeah.
A Godzilla movie, because that legitimizing, because this year, 1954, right, is the 70th anniversary of Godzilla, which is amazing. Listen, Jay Wes says, I'd love to see Doctor Strange versus Cthulhu. But and Scott Bartholomew wants to know if I publish my stream dates ahead of time. I don't usually do that because I'm going to try and do that more often than not because people ask me that and I want to get on a regular schedule. I've been trying to do more streams lately and be more regular because the rest of my life is regular, if you know what I'm saying. But streaming is not. But we are caught up with the super chats and everything, and it's midnight. It's 3 in the morning for you lovely folks.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So let me ask you kids, first of all, RM, what's going on with you on the internet?
Well, as you guys know, I have my channel Positive Fandom where I do my Sunday brunch shows on Sunday. I do all the parlay and the fandom. I only stream on 2 days now live, which is Sundays and Fridays, which is today pretty much. And of course, you can always see me here on Midnight Musings when we do musings. But I also have a new channel called Roman Empire Matters, where I look at everything that is inspired by or takes place during the Roman Empire in entertainment, guys. So I've already got a podcast up for that show, Roman Empire Matters podcast. And
that's cool.
Thank you. I'm also reviewing I, Claudius with Russell Whitfield as well on that channel. So please do check that out.
Have you started that yet?
Yes, I have.
Oh, I got to watch that.
Yeah, so you can see I have an episode on Roman Empire Matters. You can watch it there. And the podcast, I'm going to host the podcast on YouTube first and then find a host to do it properly. But Julian Mushkin, I'm doing the Roman Empire Matters podcast with, and we are having such a great time talking about entertainment and how much modern entertainment has been influenced by the Roman Empire. It's absolutely wonderful. And
that's really cool.
Thank you so much. And I didn't get a chance to talk about He-Man tonight, Robert, because it was too much to talk about. But I am going to say the new He-Man, it's called Revolution, not Revelations. The other one, Revolution. Right. The new one is back to what we know as He-Man. So for those of you who have just like, I can't look at He-Man anymore, check out the new one. I promise you won't be disappointed. It's literally Tila and Adam are together again. And I don't mean they're friends. I mean, like, they definitely are together. It's a beautiful back to normal version of He-Man that we all know and
nice.
Love. Yeah. So that's what I've been up to. And of course, when the BAFTAs come up, guys, in the next few weeks, I'm going to be covering that on the Burnettwork. You guys are going to see it. We're going to cover the BAFTAs coming up, leading up to the Oscars. So.
And Lael, what do you got cooking?
Yeah, what we have going on. So of course, if you haven't already, make sure that you actually subscribe to the 1/6 Scale Man YouTube channel if you haven't already. We got lots of things coming up. Like today we had Figure Flex Friday. Of course, we're continuing with that. I mean, again, this has been something for the fans, people who review and you know, take photos and figure photography. If you want your display to be recognized, on top of that, you win some great giveaways. We got, you know, pretty much a giveaway going on right now, Hawk Wars, which basically has been sponsored by Ray from Hawk Wars Toys. So the winner of this gets the choice of 3 figures. So again, this is going to be a phenomenal run with this particular segment of the show itself. We got Collectors Lounge International on Sunday, of course, and that's normally Sunday afternoon. And then we've actually just brought back Take Your Position. So we'll be actually posing different figures live and just having discussions about what's going on in pop culture while we pose, showing you different ways to pose certain figures and stuff like that. We have Comic Book Talk with Friends on Monday, so we will definitely be back. Lots to talk about that on Monday nights around 9:15. Of course, Say What Wednesday, 9:15 every Wednesday, and then back for Figure Flex. We need to be bringing back Uncivilized Scoundrels, but I don't know what's going on with that right now with Mario. I have to figure out whenever he's ready. There's lots to talk about in the Star Wars universe, but it's just about timing. So just have to wait and see what's going on with him. I have another segment of my collector's therapy, basically where, we talk about, the therapeutic side of collecting. We had like our first show like a couple weeks ago, and that was pretty good. This week or next week we're going to talk about curating your collection space, how to basically create space, because again we know that can be stressful as well. You want to always make sure that you are really taking care of your collection, but at the same time you're thinking about other people in the household and space. So again, you want to make sure that you check that out. But yeah, lots going on. A lot of good things that are actually coming up. I'm actually be interviewing John from InArt in about a week or week and a half, so to give me some updates on what's going on. So we'll be doing that. So yeah, man, if you haven't already, tune in the channel, and lots to talk about. It's gonna be some good things going on.
That's the 1/6 Scale Man YouTube channel.
Definitely.
Well, listen, kids, I will let you guys go. This has been a fun show. I'll see you next week. It'll be February. Can you believe it? Already February?
Yeah.
Yeesh.
Yeah,
Wowzers.
in February. It's right there.
Yeah. All right.
Right there.
Well, I will let you kids go.
Yeah.
All
thank
right.
you to
See you
Tom
later.
Jackson. We are all goof people.
All right.
Bye.
See you guys later. And I want to thank Tom Jr. Jackson for gifting a membership. This is an interesting show. So yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily, I don't know if I should jump off or not. Maybe I should. So there is a member call tomorrow. So starting at 11, Roberto Suarez, of course, a member call. You can jump on in if you're a member. It's for all members. And we, on our member calls, we just shoot the shit. You can ask me anything you want. We have a good bunch of people. Everybody kind of knows each other now. And usually how it works is people put their hands up, and then I'm in order, and then we give everybody 7 minutes to say their piece. So, hey, if you want to tell me anything, you can. I will not stop you. It's totally an open member call, and no matter what, we chat. It's great. It's a lot of fun. I love doing it. And on that note, Jason Webster says Godzilla Minus One has won 3 honors, including Best Film at the Blue Ribbon Awards. Is that a Japanese? I don't know what the Blue Ribbon Awards are, but it deserves it. A terrific film. Also, I think the lesson to be learned from Godzilla Minus One is that I've always said that any franchise is one film or one TV show away from greatness. And Godzilla proves Godzilla's probably the oldest continuing franchise in Hollywood history that's still being made. And I think it's shown that you truly can. You can turn anything, you can make anything great if you want to. So I loved Godzilla Minus One, and I think I want to see Godzilla Minus One minus color, just because I think it would be cool. But anyway, on that note, I want to thank everybody for generously supporting this channel via Super Chats and Tips. I want to thank Tom Jr. Jackson for being a goof person and coining the phrase, we're all goof people. I want to thank all of you. A lot of new subscribers to the channel. I want to thank you if you're a new subscriber. Thank you for coming, and appreciate your support that way. Like, subscribe, and do all that. And yeah, so keeping on, doing more Robservations, moving forward to that 1000th episode, and I'm trying to put together some really interesting interviews, and it will be a 1,000-minute show. So we'll be on for 1,000 minutes, which will be pretty exciting. So on that note, every person you meet has a story to tell that you have yet to hear, and all you have to do is listen. And with that, I say goodbye to all of you until 11 o'clock tomorrow morning on Pacific time here on the Burnettwork, if you are a member. So, And Jay West wants to see Doctor Strange versus Cthulhu. Well, that's kind of what we got in Dormammu. Kind of. And on that note, I will see you all later.